Ghanaians, the nation's founder, Sergeant Kwame Nkrumah. May God bless him, Ghana showboy, Africa's great song, Sergeant Dr. Nkrumah. He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer and the champion of liberty, of human equality. Let's salute him, fellow Ghanaians, the nation's founder, Sergeant Kwame Nkrumah. May God bless him, Ghana showboy, Africa's great song, Sergeant Dr. Nkrumah.
Hello, what are you doing Tuesday to Friday, 7:30 to 9 o'clock p.m. every day? You should be watching The Couch. I'll tell you why. On Tuesdays, we talk social issues, lifestyle, health, all those everyday issues that affect us in the big ways. Late Wednesdays are for book reviews. Thursdays are for the hard talk, those socio-economic, policy-oriented, political questions that demand for the tough questions to be asked. And personality profiling Fridays, when we get to know the stories behind the winning personalities we love. Inspirational story from inspirational personalities. Hey, listen, you really cannot miss The Couch with me, Amma, but still the only TV show with a hat.
And we're live from the studios of Pan-African Television, broadcasting here in Abelingpe. I would like to welcome you to another edition of the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji. And Alhaji, a good morning to you wherever you are watching from. Aside from Pan-African Television, you can get us, if you live in Accra, within the greater Accra region, specifically the Accra metropolis, you can get us on Ahunto 92.3 FM. Ahunto 92.3 FM. They are major radio partners. We are also live on several radio stations across the country. We are live on Global FM in Ho. We are also live in Diamond FM in Tamale. And we are live on Shine FM in Akacha, among several other radio affiliates. If you are listening to us on any of those platforms, thank you for joining us. And of course, this morning we'll be discussing the major issues that made the news across the week. My name is Sena, Nombo. Now, this week has been dominated by three major issues. The first one was the announcement of the running mates of the National Democratic Congress. It was a name that has not been part of the speculation for a long time, but she came out tops and she is the running mate of the National Democratic Congress, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyemang, former Minister of Education and also a former Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Coast. Now, she has been speaking not to the public, but there's a statement issued to what she's been saying to the campaign team of the National Democratic Congress. Of course, the NDC also outdoor their campaign team this week. They swore them in and they started work. But the other issue that also came up was the issue having to do with the leave of the Auditor General, the leave that has been instructed, directed by the President. And the Auditor General has been on leave since 1st July. And the CS, some CSOs came together and put a press conference out. And they held a press conference at which they raised questions with the decision of the President. Now, they are saying that the reasons they are giving, including the legal reasons, are untenable. And they are also worried about the kind of impression that is created about Ghana's commitment to fighting anti-corruption. those issues were raised at that press conference. But the government says, well, you have your own reasons, we have ours. We believe that we are right when it comes to the issue of the legality of it. And we are not afraid of any court case, because the CSO have also indicated that they will most probably be going to court. The government says they'll meet them in court, but they do not intend to change their mind. So that is another issue. Then the third issue is, for the first time, the health unions, the worker groups, the professionals have come together. You have the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association, the Ghana Medical Association also coming together, GOSPA and HSW have come together to put out a press conference raising questions about the way we are running our management of the COVID-19 pandemic, the kind of decisions we are making. So those three issues will dominate our discussion this morning. And of course, joining me this morning for the discussion today, Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jr. is managing editor of the Insight newspaper. Sitting right beside him is Dr. Samson Obeda-Pia, who is a lecturer in sociology from the University of Ghana. And then we have, for the first time in a long while, very, very long while, we have our very first female panelist, especially on this network, since we started holding Alhaji and Alhaji on this network, Madame Gabriela Tete. Now, she is seeking to unseat a Deputy Minister of Communication in Ewutu Sena West in 2020 in the parliamentary elections. So she has joined us today. And of course, our very good friend Mujib Rahman, who is a member of the communications team of the New Patriotic Party. Thank you for joining us this morning. Of course, yeah, we say it as it is, no matter who is involved. In the end, we'll leave you better educated. We'll take a short break. When we'll come back, I'll introduce our topics again, and then we'll start off the discussion. Stick and stay with us. It's Alhaji and Alhaji.
May God bless him. Ghana show boy, Africa's great song.
Morning is an important time of the day, because how you spend your morning can often tell you what kind of day you're going to have. I want you to have a great day. So start your day with me, because I can guarantee a great show every weekday on Good Morning Africa right here on Pan-African Television. I will be serving some inspiration, news, business, health, newspaper review, music, and so much more. Join me, Kwame Owusu Danso, on Good Morning Africa on Pan-African Television. Let's have a truly African morning. Medasi.
Market Stories is all about our market. Issues such as sanitation, market structures, storage facility, pricing, bargaining, and everything else that goes on in the market is going to be very educative, entertaining, and interactive. We would visit our various markets with both sellers and buyers to know everything concerning our market. Join me. My name is Mortia Analinate. I'm your market lady.
Hello, what are you doing Tuesday to Friday, 7:30 to 9 o'clock p.m. every day? You should be watching The Couch. I'll tell you why. On Tuesdays, we talk social issues, lifestyle, health, all those everyday issues that affect us in the big ways. Wednesdays are for book reviews. Thursdays are for the hard talk, those socio-economic, policy-oriented, political questions that demand for the tough questions to be asked. And personality profiling Fridays, when we get to know the stories behind the winning personalities we love. Inspirational story from inspirational personalities. Hey, listen, you really cannot miss The Couch with me, Amma, but still the only TV show with a heart.
Morning is an important time of the day because how you spend your morning can often tell you what kind of day you're going to have. I want you to have a great day. So start your day with me because I can guarantee a great show every weekday on Good Morning Africa right here on Pan-African Television. I will be serving some inspiration, news, business, health, newspaper review, music, and so much more. Join me, Kwame Owusu-Danso on Good Morning Africa on Pan-African Television. Let's have a truly African morning. Medasi.
Welcome back from that break. If you're just joining us, you're watching the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji. We're live from the studios of Pan-African Television. Now, you can listen to us on radio, Ahunta 92.3 FM. We are live on several other affiliates across the country. Of course, we are live on social media, very, very important. We are on Facebook. Today, we hope that by the time we get to Mr. Pratt, you can watch Mr. Pratt on social media. Facebook, for the past 1 month, it has been completely difficult. But we are on Facebook. Pan-African Television. Pan-African Television is the channel we are on. But if you also like to listen to internet radio, no matter the radio streaming apps you're using, just look for Ahunta 92.3 FM, or you can look for Radio Gold 90.5 FM, Radio Gold 90.5 FM, and you can get to listen to the program live. And if you're watching through Facebook, share your comments with us. We'll also be displaying a number across the screen which you can use to send in your Facebook, your WhatsApp and text messages. Now, in introducing my panel, I made a mistake, honest mistake. But Madame Gabriela Tete is not contesting for Ewutu Senya West. It is her sister. She is a member of the NDC's communication team. So she has joined us today. And of course, if you're just joining us, Mr. Kwesi Pratt is here with us. Dr. Samson Obedapia from the University of Ghana is also here with us. And Mujib Rahman from the NPP's communication team is with us. And this morning, we are talking about the NDC's decision, and that goes with the picking of Professor Nana Opoku-Agyemang as the running mate for the 2020 elections. And then we'll spend some time talking about COVID, the rising numbers, and the concerns that have been expressed by the health workers themselves. And then if we do have enough time, we'll run with the Auditor General's leave and the issues that have been raised by the civil society organizations. Thank you for making time. Your views are always very important to us. A big thank you to the crew here at Pan-African Television and to the other people working to make sure that we bring you Alhaji and Alhaji wherever you are. Thank you for making time. Let's start off the discussion with the running mate choice that has been made by the National Democratic Congress. Of course, I had indicated to you that she has been speaking. Now, a statement has been issued under the signature of Margaret Anseh, deputy spokesperson of the campaign team of the National Democratic Congress. And the statement is titled, Prof. Opoku-Agyemang expresses appreciation. And it says, the running mate of the National Democratic Congress, Professor Nana Opoku-Agyemang, has expressed appreciation for the support that greeted the announcement of her new role. The former Minister for Education, also served as the first female Vice-Chancellor of a public university in Ghana, was on Monday announced by former President John Dramani Mahama as his running mate for this year's presidential election. That announcement has been greeted with enthusiasm and support from people from all walks of life, including academia, civil society, professional and women's group. Social media has also been awash with support for the NDC running mate. Addressing a retreat of the NDC campaign team on Friday in Accra, Prof. Opoku-Agyemang expressed a gratitude for the support and pointed out that she would justify the confidence reposed in her. Prof. Opoku-Agyemang also said people, especially women, are looking up to the NDC for answers to issues that affect them and called on the NDC to close its ranks and work hard for victory in the coming election. That's the statement that has been issued. So those are her very first comments. We are waiting to hear from her officially, the public especially, and we are waiting with bated breath. But we'll be analyzing the choice of her as the running mate. Now, she spent a significant part of his working career in academia. So we'll start today's discussion with Dr. Samson Obedapia from the University of Ghana, who will lead a discussion for us on that issue. Doc, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, Sena, and good morning to all the panelists here. Uncle Kwesi, my sister and our brother. Yes, I think, as you rightly introduced, our first topic has to do with the choice of Professor Sena Opoku-Agyemang as the NDC running mate. Now, let me say that over the week or the whole week, I've had several discussions as to the choice, the strengths, the weaknesses of the candidates, as well as why some feel that this is not the first time a political party in this country have chosen a woman as a running mate. In fact, we know that in the last election, I think PPP also chose Madam Bridget, is it Jome? Yeah. I think Miss Late Evaloko was also once chosen. If somebody was also telling me CPP, I don't know whether I've also chosen a woman candidate before. So it is very instructive to know that, I mean, this is not the first time a party is doing this. But it's also very instructive to also indicate that this is the first time two of the major political parties, and now we know in the Fourth Republic, I mean, the power shifted between the NDC and NPP. So I understand why some people are also very, I mean, interested in the choice, because the two major political parties, the NDC and the NPP, this is the first time any of them have chosen a woman as a running mate. So that is why it is something which is worth discussion and very important. Now let me start by looking at the fact that in terms of issue of gender and female issues in this country, I mean, we all know that, I mean, in terms of female involvement in politics and decision making, I mean, this is something that takes many years or takes back the history back to several years. I mean, we know that women in terms of our Fourth Republic have played very important roles. Now, I was telling somebody over the week that you realize that in terms of women's role in all spheres of our society, one of the areas I was very much interested in is the role or the role of women in education. I mean, I was telling somebody, growing up as a young person, I've also taught gender and development in some of my students. One of the things I've always realized is that when we start from the basic schools, you can see the equal number of males and females in class. But as we rise the academic ladder, the number comes down. So we realize that over the years, the state or our nation have done a conscious effort to encourage female education. In fact, I recalled, I mean, growing up, you remember the girl child education, send your girl child to school. I mean, it was something that we consciously did as a nation, and it got to a time we began to see the benefit of it. In fact, I was telling somebody yesterday that I recalled when I went to the University of Ghana in 2000 as a first-year student, I could count the number of female lecturers or professors who taught me. But today, I sit back as a lecturer myself, look at my own department, look at the university. I mean, over 15, 20 years, things have changed. I can today proudly say that if you come to many of the departments, you could see that a lot of females are also becoming lecturers. I mean, I might go to the hospitals and I see female medical doctors, which 10, 15, 20 years ago, we don't see so much. So you could see that when it comes to the area of education, we have done a lot in terms of the inroads. In fact, it was thanks to the conscious effort we did in terms of encouraging females or girl children to school. Because until recently, until we started that conscious effort, the education of the girl child was always relegated to the background, where culturally, the cultural dynamics or notion is that, I mean, if you send a girl to school, she ends up to in a man's kitchen or whatever. So these were cultural barriers or cultural factors that affected female participation when it comes to politics, and it comes from education. So I can say that in terms of education, as a nation, we've done so well. But one of the areas that I have always have issues with is the participation of women in education. In fact, in a study I did about a year or two ago, I looked at the lived experiences of female MPs in Parliament in the Fourth Republic. And one of the things we realized that currently we are about 275 MPs. We are about 37, 38 who are females. So it could tell you that when it comes to female involvement in political decision making, as a nation, we are still not up there. I mean, the recent district assembly election that we had, I started work on that also. You could see that the number of women who contested and even won their seats was very low. I mean, remember back in 2009 also when late Oscar Mills became the president, you remember he promised 40%, appointment for women. you knew some of the women groups came to criticize him because he was not able to appoint that amount of number to, the position. So you realize that in terms of female involvement in politics and decision making, there's still a gap. Now, in spite of that, you can also see that in terms of strategic appointments or inroads, we've done some. We had the first time in 2008 or 2007 when former President Kufuor appointed the first Chief Justice, Madam Georgina Theodore-Wood. Yeah. Later we had 2009 when late Mills also appointed the first female Speaker of Parliament. What's the name of Balfordado? Thank you very much. So gradually we went on to have the first female EC chair. So in terms of those areas of politics and decision making, we had women who were given the opportunity to also contribute their role. So realize that as we move on, one of the areas which remain, and I listened to the former President John Mahama, who said that, yes, he realized that we have gotten women to some positions, but one critical area that had remained was the issue of the vice presidency. And as I said earlier on, we have some political parties who have attempted to give the opportunity to some women to be running mates. We knew how it ended in terms of vote. So for me, for the two major political parties, who we know that whether we like it or not, in our fourth republic, it's either the NDC or the MPP that wins the election. So for me, we woke up on Monday and realized that the NDC candidates and the NDC as a party have given opportunity to a woman as a running mate. Now, I've gone through and listened to the argument for, and some of the people who have also raised some issues about it. Now, let's also not forget that all along this debate of women empowerment and women involvement in politics, one of the key issues that have come up is the issue of the fact that we don't just need to appoint or nominate women to political positions. We need to get competent women. In fact, one of the things I've always raised in my discussion with my students is the fact that, most of the political parties have thought about these female MPs and party primaries. I think MPP did something in 2016 when they tried to reserve some seats for women. I remember that situation. And it became an issue because some people were like, they were protecting the women and there were no primaries in those constituencies. I have always held this view that in countries like Rwanda, which have some level of women who are high in politics, you realize that they've been able to reserve some seats for women in parliament. So, for example, let's say we take Ketu South or Bantama. We decide that, okay, both NDC and MPP, we have between the two parties, let's get about 3-4 competent women who can contest their primaries. So whichever wins or whatever party wins the primaries, we have a competent, qualified woman who contests the seat. So it is not just sending any woman there to go and contest the seat. So for me, it comes back to this issue about what kind of women are we sending to politics and decision making. So for me, I was very happy to hear that the NEC appointed or nominated a woman, not just a woman. This is a first female vice chancellor of one of the major public universities in Ghana. That is the University of Cape Coast. And in fact, I was reading something from a colleague in UCC who said that in terms of her tenure at UCC, the records are there for everybody to read. He was able to bring some level of development to UCC. And let's also not forget, for me, for a woman or a female professor to be able to rise to that position and lead the university for 4 years, and we didn't hear any problems of we are going to impeach her or we have these problems with her, and she ended her term peacefully and stepped out of or left the university and moved on to other spheres of society, shows that she has some level of competence and some level of skills that she has been to use to manage the university. So for me, it's very important to take note that the NDC did not just choose any woman, but chose a woman who was competent and who had the skills, who had the track record of being able to run a public university for 4 good years. Then also forget that apart from that, in 2012 to 2016, she was able to also function as a minister for education. When the then president, John Mahama, appointed her as a minister for education. And this is a woman who, took care of a ministry with 2 other deputies, and we saw the things they did. Some of the issues are issues that maybe later all of us can debate here. The point is that whether you like it or not, she, as a minister for education, brought some transformation. I mean, was able to convert the technical polytechnics into technical universities, the teacher training college into college of education. She brought some level of development in terms of infrastructure, and these are things we can see. So for me, this is the track record of the person we are talking about as the vice presidential candidate. Now, let me also look at the point that, if you listen to the former president's argument of why the choice of this woman. I mean, and as I said, he made the point that over the years, we've always talked about female empowerment. As I said, I've listed the roles women have played, the Chief Justice, they've been to the Speaker of Parliament, they've been to the Letter Commission. So a time has come where we need some level of, role model for the women to believe in themselves. Now, I've also heard the arguments, people feeling that, some have argued that, women themselves do not vote for their own. But I also believe that, yes, that may be true or may not be true. But it's about time we also give the women the chance to also look at what their own colleagues can do. So for me, on that score, I think the choice was very strategic in terms of the time of the choice that the NEC made. Now, I'll also forget that I think a lot of people were expecting a choice from the normal political people, maybe those who are already known a political scheme. Now, don't forget that I've also heard quarters where people said, all along we have been selecting people who are from economic background. So the economy has become the basis of choice. Now, I have an issue with that because see, the point is that, let's not forget something, Sena. This 2020 election, one of the trump cards of the ruling government is the issue of education. That's not the case. So anytime we ask them what they've done, they said free SHS. The major things they've done as a government. So going to an election which have always used free SHS as their trump card, I believe or I think that strategically the NDC may be thinking or have been thinking that if that is the reason why this government have been using it, let's bring in someone who also have a lot of experience in education. And let's not forget, I was telling a colleague yesterday that I see our current vice president rose on the mantra of economy. But today we know that he is into ICT, digitization, among others, which shows that the dynamics are changed. So for me, the issue about why the NDC didn't choose somebody from economy, it's also an argument that we can look at because whether you like it or not, and we also have the history in this country. When former President Kufuor nominated Alhaji, he was an economist. I think he was an engineer or something. Yeah. We also had Professor Fred Rollins when he selected late Professor Mills. He was a professor, a tax expert. We had President Mahama partnering Professor Mills, who was a lawyer and who was a communicator. So for me, the issue of the economy, because we have always chosen that, is a convention and not a rule. And I don't think, maybe Uncle Gozeduko can correct me, I don't know if there's any point in our constitution which says that the vice president, as a chairman of the economic management team, must be an economist. So for me, that is an area I felt that people must understand that societies are dynamic and not static. Then also, let me quickly look at the reactions, especially from the major political party as MPP. In fact, let me say that I was a bit disappointed to read and hear some of the comments that have come from leading figures of the MPP. Sena, let's be frank, and this one, let's take politics aside. As I said, as somebody who promotes gender and also who is into gender and development, I feel that whether or not the woman was chosen because it's an academic or a professor shouldn't be the reason why people should say that. In fact, I listened to the argument the majority speaker leader said in Parliament that the woman may not be able to handle power. And my question is, if a woman has been able to run an university for 4 years, and this university of professors, his own fellow professors, and let me say, Sena, it's very serious. Handling or dealing with professors in university is not easy. And these are dealt with students, all other workers for 4 years. How could you then say that such a person cannot handle power? Then we heard about the argument of Mr. Yabuabia Samuel and co. So you see, it's gradually beginning to make the point that the people who are criticizing the woman are doing so not because of the woman's competence, but because of her personality. And that is what I think we should be careful in our politics. One of the things I've always told my students in teaching gender is that one of the things that have always discouraged women from participating is the issue of what? Politics of insult. In fact, let me give an example. I had this professor from my department who during late Professor Mills' time, this is an established professor, female, and was telling me something plainly that because of the way people talk in this country, people can even insult you and call you. That is why many of them will not even want to accept any appointment that they are given. So for me to have a majority leader in parliament to go to the extent of calling the woman's integrity by saying she cannot handle power was very unfortunate. Then we've also heard, I listened to one yesterday from Chairman to me, and said I was disappointed that this is somebody who can call, say those things against a woman. Somebody who can be as old as your mother or your sister. And I wonder, do these people have sisters or mothers at home? So now my point is that if you don't have anything against the woman's, qualification or her integrity, then just, I've listened to other people in the MPP who have also said, the woman is qualified. And for me, I think that going forward, let's not forget, if it is the MPP that also selected a woman, and anybody in the NDC also say the same thing, will come and also criticize the person. My argument is that the MPP had the opportunity to have done it, they didn't do it. In fact, I read a post from Mr. Gabriel who said that in 2008, I don't know how true is that the current president attempted to nominate Hajia Halima Mahama, and group of MPP women, he said 2 buses of women, came to the president, the candidate Den's house, to say that they didn't want the woman. So which means that the MPP all along had an opportunity to do that. So if you're not able to do that, why then do you then now criticize somebody for doing same? And for me, I also think that, finally, I will say that I've also gone to some of the accusations or the criticism against the woman. And let me just touch on one of them. I read one of them in a statement from an MPP that the woman at the ministry cancelled a book and research allowance for lecturers. So now let me put on record here. I'm a lecturer. In 2016, the NDC government paid book and research allowance for lecturers. And this one, I am challenging any lecturer who says that in 2016 he did not receive his or her book and research. What happened was this. The NDC then wanted to establish the research fund to replace the book and research allowance. But I remember UTAG then, in fact, I was part of a meeting in UTAG in Legon, which we said no. The book and research allowance was part of our condition of service. So quickly, the then ministry and the deputy minister then quickly agreed that, okay, they will still maintain the book and research allowance and establish the research fund. So I find it disappointing and surprising that people could say that MP came to power and restored the book and research allowance, which the woman counts as a minister. So now I'm saying to you, I'll send a letter to you, which came from the then deputy minister for finance, Atoriford, which was instructing the minister to pay book and research allowance to lecturers in the university. So, Sena, it is instructive to know that whoever said the woman cancelled book and research allowance, it's not true. We all know the teacher training allowance issue, which I don't want to go into because these are policy issues that even if she made a mistake, Sena, which of the current leaders in this country can say they haven't made mistakes in whatever policy they've held before? So, Sena, I think that these are things we need to look at. Let's look at the woman's competence. I believe that it is a victory for feminism, it's victory for gender and development, it's victory for women movement, and it's victory for all of us as Ghanaians that for the first time, the 2 major political parties, one have appointed a woman to lead their running mate team. And let's see how the campaign will go, and if she has the position to be a vice president, what difference can she bring? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Samson Obedapia from the University of Ghana. If you're just joining us, the Mother of All Talk Shows, Alhaji and Alhaji, we're discussing the choice of Professor Jenana Opoku-Agyemang as the running mate of the National Democratic Congress. Berima Osei on Facebook is saying, it's sad we are joking with COVID-19 as leaders. We are going to schools to register kids when we can't even protect them. COVID-19 is spreading. We have to be serious. And says, congratulations to Prof. Jenana Opoku-Agyemang. Let's hope her inclusion brings sanity to our political discourse. Thank you. And Habib Bantus is saying, Sena, isn't it shocking and astonishing that under a lawyer president, lawlessness, illegality, total disrespect for the Constitution of Ghana, rule of law has been thrown to the under President Akufo-Addo. EC said laws for election, and the same EC regards its laws. Can you believe what is happening? Do we have a president in Ghana, or the president in times of a pandemic runs to hiding in isolation and leaves us to our faith? Thank you for that message. And King Farouk says, and I agree with your first panelist, this is not the first time a female has been chosen as a running mate. But this will be the first time Ghana will have a female vice president after the December 7th elections. And says hashtag I am with her. And let me end with Positive Change Madina, who says we shall make sure we separate incompetence from competence on 7 December and make sure John Mahama takes over the seat of governance again to repair all damages caused by the Akufo-Addo's government. Let me come to Madam Gabriela Tete for her views.
I'd like to say a good morning to our viewers and those listening to us on Ahoto FM. And also a special thank you to Mr. Kwesi Pratt for allowing the change in gender on your panel. Why are you laughing? It's a good thing. Times are changing. Sena, on Monday, the NDC did announce a new running mate to complement our flag bearer, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. There's been a lot of backlash from the opposition NPP, which is not surprising because, I mean, naturally, when your opponent plays, it's like the game of chess, when your opponent plays a move that makes nonsense of all your other moves, clearly you fight back. And they've been fighting very vocally with a lot of allegations against the candidature, the personality of our running mate. Be that it may, I believe that the people of Ghana themselves will get the opportunity to listen to Professor Jane on many platforms, including the campaign platforms. So they'll form a better view of who the woman really is. We, as communicators and as party members, we will always put her better side out for everybody to get to know her. She's a very lovely woman. She's very humble, very intelligent, aside having accomplished all that she has as a lecturer in literature, rising to become a dean of the graduate school, a warden to Adishi Hall, becoming a senior lecturer, and then a vice chancellor, even in the academic space. That is no small feat for any individual, male or female. For you to go through the ranks over 30 years and rise to that level, it's a big accomplishment. When you call for a meeting of the Association of Vice Chancellors, current and former, it's just a small group of people who will show up for your meeting. That tells you that, and amongst them, there will only be 2 female, a former and a current from KNUST. She has done a lot for herself, personal-wise. She's a very responsible mother. She has 3 lovely children who have all excelled in their scope of work. They are all PhD holders and are lecturing just like their mother. For her political career, although not many people recognize her as your typical politician because she doesn't have many years of experience like some of the heavyweight names from the female wing who are also competing for the position, or who are also being considered for the position of vice president. I think that what makes her situation unique is that the NDC recognizes all talent, irrespective of how long you've been in the system. What matters is that you have the competence and the wherewithal to accomplish the purpose for which you have been called to perform. She just has about 10 years experience with the NDC, formally. But I want to believe that prior to that, she was also behind the scenes as somebody who was sympathetic to the orientation of the NDC. And there are many people like that who do not hold card membership positions of the NDC, but are very supportive of the NDC. As a Minister for Education, she charted many firsts for us. The NPP raised accusations of one, as my dear gentleman here mentioned about the research and book allowance. And I'm very happy that he's already laid the matter to rest, so there's no point to go into it again. On the issue of teacher trainee allowances, for example, in the year 2000, when President Kufuor became president, the teacher trainees at the time approached the NPP government and requested that the status of the College of Education be lifted to tertiary status. When the NDC came to power, they looked at the possibility of making that happen. Aside having polytechnics migrate up and advance become technical universities, what do we do to the educational colleges as well? And the prospect then was, let's lift them also so they are all at par. Now, at the tertiary education level, we all know that for students who are going to study medicine, for students who are going to study engineering, agriculture, economics, tourism, law, even arts, there is a student loan scheme that everybody applies to and is given facility to support their education. When the NDC abolished the teacher training allowance, it was replaced with the loan scheme, which then meant that students now had access to bigger funds than the allowances that they were being given. These allowances, although they were supposed to be paid monthly, were themselves not forthcoming. So the better option is to have everybody on a loan scheme so that at the end of the day, you pay back the monies, and it's a pool of money that supports more than one particular group of students. There is the issue also of the Muntier 3. And the issue of the Muntier 3, she wasn't the only person who signed a petition for the release of the Muntier 3. And on the issue of the Muntier 3, it was more of a plea to the then executive, the then president, who had the executive power to show mercy and clemency to people who have been found guilty of the law, but who under certain conditions the law permits that the presidency under some what's the word? Given certain conditions, can apply mercy to their plea. And she, like so many other appointees and other ministers in her capacity, all requested and petitioned the then president to reconsider the high-handedness of the judges in the case of the Muntier 3. Was that wrong on her part? Personally, I do not think there was anything wrong with what they did, given the circumstances under which the event happened. Because, man, you were going into an election and you want your ground troops, being your support base, to feel like whatever it is that they do, so long as it's not an illegality, you are still with them, and and it helps to also close the ranks of your followers and your people. Now, what are some of her achievements? You see, like what my dear brother said, the MPP going into election 2020 has only one message, and that is free SHS. The free SHS, as we sit here today, you have young people who were put into school. This year should have been the year where we see the actual output of these students. After all the stress they have been through, with a double track system, with overcrowding, with a misguided computer placement system, and all its stresses, with having to sit home for 3 months before they go to the next semester, and now having to sit at home because of a pandemic, and now finally being asked to go back to school in the midst of a pandemic so they can write their exams. I don't think any class or students have gone through more stress per any academic year than this current crop of Akufo-Addo graduates. As it stands, Nigeria, as a member of WASI, has decided that children should not go back to school. They've cancelled it because of the pandemic. We are still going ahead with it because the president must by all means show that his free education policy amounted to something. I forgot to even add that they've even gone to the extent of going to buy past examination questions to come and use to teach students so that they can pass their exams. Shows you how desperate they are to try and do everything possible to make sure that these kids excel. We all wish them that they excel. We don't play with the education of any individual because only God knows what that individual is going to amount to. And at the end of the day, if we play with the educational system, it comes back to haunt us as a nation. Unlike the NPP, who went for this wholesale free education, put everybody inside there and let them struggle even minus textbooks, the NDC's approach was that we would tier the free SHS program to a more progressive methodology. For those kids who do not have shoes to go to school, we'll put shoes on their feet. For those who don't have uniforms, we will dress them. For those who lack food, and remind you, there are certain communities, deprived communities, where these three factors are a deciding factor for whether a child goes to school or not. Because they don't have shoes, they don't have clothes, and they don't have food. Our policy was, let's put all these mechanisms in place to make sure that kids go to school. At the secondary level, since we're talking about free SHS, our approach was that looking at the infrastructure of the secondary school level students, for us to get more people in there, it means that we have to expand on that infrastructure. So we went for the E-blocks, upgrading of dormitories, upgrading of classrooms in most of these secondary schools. We invested heavily in infrastructure in the educational sector, most especially secondary school education. At the time when she was taking over as Minister for Education, we had three students sharing one textbook. At the time she was leaving office, it had improved to one student now having access to 4 textbooks. In the current free SHS regime, parents are having to buy their textbooks, something that was being provided to them for free under the NDC administration, because they couldn't publish enough of the numbers. So now, unlike the 4 books per student, now parents now are going to are the ones supporting it. And we have gone back to a time when we had more than one student having access to a textbook. Under the free SHS system, we now have a double track system. When she was Minister for Education, she made sure that we abolished any semblance of double track in the educational system. How then do we go back for something that has been undone, for us to now go back and reintroduce it into our educational system? So when I hear the NPP go on and on about Madam Professor Jane and the kind of things that they say about her, my only inclination is that is because they're actually intimidated by the prospect of having a woman as a vice president. You see, we had a whole majority leader actually grant an interview. A man born of a woman, married to 3 wives, with children, open his mouth and say that when should anything happen to our president, does this woman look presidential? What makes a person presidential? Is it beauty? Of what use is your beauty if your people are hungry? Of what use is your beauty when in a pandemic your people are afraid of a pandemic and do not know what strategy you are putting in place to actually contain and prevent the further spread of a virus? Of what use is beauty? Is it not brains we need? I've heard Madam Esla say Madam Professor Jane has contributed nothing to women empowerment. Really? I mean, really? A woman who has taught girls from their time as a lecturer, and you know, I have a personal experience with this lady. In 1988-89, there's a lady called Madam Christine Chacha. You've heard her name before, from the NPP. She was a literature teacher at Wesley Girls. she had a job, so she had to leave Wesley Girls. And that brought a created vacancy for a literature teacher at Wesley Girls. It took a while for them to get a replacement. Madame Jane volunteered, and for a year, she was teaching A-level students English literature so they could go and write their final exams. Is that not empowerment in the true sense of the word? From her time as a lecturer, for all those young girls who sat in her class, every day watching her impart knowledge to them, for those who had one-on-one encounters with her, and she imparted wisdom to them, for those who even may not have come close to her, but heard her story and were inspired by it and said, oh, I would like to be like Professor Jane when I grow up. Is that not empowerment? As a warden to Adichie Hall, a full female, no, Adichie Hall, yes, Adichie Hall is a female hall. Full female hall, just like Volta Hall in Legon. For all the years that she spent as their warden, did she not empower them? As a lecturer, as a vice chancellor, as the head of the graduate studies, now going to teach at the postgraduate level, was that not empowerment? If you look at the hundreds of thousands of people, male and female, who have gone through this woman's hands, how do you compare that to people whose only role in female activism is to go on demonstration, go and sit on TV and radio and talk, and call that empowerment? How do you compare yourself to somebody who has actually spent a lifetime empowering young girls? Now, her ticket to the NDC, she's coming on board with new freshness. I'm particularly excited about her for two main reasons. The selection of Professor Jane in particular, for me as a female in the NDC, is exciting news for me because I have a personal view that looking at the patriarchal society that we live in, it's hard for women to rise because of our own culture around supporting women. But when women are given the opportunity, there's a lot on their shoulders to deliver. The expectation of them is very high. And you want somebody who can do two things: get the job done and still have a certain humility about the position that she's in. So that when she finishes her term and it's time to hand over the baton back to whoever is going to be vice president, or whether she also wants to advance to become president, or we want to have another female as president, that the door to the females will not be shut because the men will say, we gave you an opportunity and you messed it up. And then that will take us back another 50 years before we find another female to come and occupy that space for us. I am excited about Professor Jane because I am 100% confident that she will deliver on the mandate of a vice president. What is the expectation of a vice president? Per the Constitution, he was asking if there's anywhere in the Constitution that is written that the vice president has to be an economist. As a matter of fact, when you read the clause of the vice president, his role is just about 2 paragraphs. There shall be a vice president whose job will be assigned by the president. The jobs, the functions she performs as head of police council, all those other jobs are not listed in the Constitution. But, be it as it may, here is somebody, let's even take as head of the police council. She has served as a vice chancellor. Currently, as we speak, she's risen to the position where she's even the chair of one of the UNESCO agencies at the UN level. And she's held that position for a while now. She's a member of the African Women Vice Chancellors. Another position she's held for some time now. I don't think that being a chairperson of a police council is such a big deal that for the roles that she's occupied before, she cannot bring that experience to bear in the other roles where, as a vice president, you are expected to be assigned. On the issue of the economic management team, I've had the privilege of sitting in economic management team meetings under His Excellency, former Vice President Emisata. Lord bless his soul. What matters most is that you have an appreciation of the economy of Ghana at large. You do not necessarily have to understand price elasticity of demand. Neither do you have to understand what is causing fluctuations in the exchange rate. But you must have an appreciation of what all those things reflect in the market and on the bigger economy. As a vice president, you have the power to marshal the best talent this country produces to fill your office and to support you. In the NDC does not lack economists. There's Professor Nimoy, Dr. Nimoy Thompson. We've had Professor Kwesi Boche. We have Fifi Kwete. We have Honorable Setepe. We have Ato Forson. We have so many economists and finance people whose talent, and myself, if I'm called on, whose talent can be drawn to support her job. When we were in the vice president office, for example, we had political economists so that you have an appreciation of, you translate it to the political economy. But we also had actual technocrats who, and we particularly went for lectures of economics, so that they will bring the theoretical knowledge. And then we had those who were with the finance and the Bank of Ghana, who also take that theoretical knowledge and apply it to what it is that we want to achieve. And then that was how we ran our economic unit. It is not rocket science. It is something that she can easily do. She already has a master's in economic policy management. So it's not the case where she's incompetent when it comes to the issue of the economy. And mind you, it's in this part of the world where we don't take people in their creatives very seriously. But in certain parts of the world, when you go to apply for a job and you have proof that you have some creative talent, there's even more premium placed on you than somebody who is purely technical. Because you will have a better imagination and more creativity. Coming from a literature background, where storytelling is very common in literature, I see somebody who will look at the Ghanaian story and see how we can transform and change our story to become a better story. I see somebody who, because of her love for children and for womanhood, from her time as a teacher, will now take the issue of the girl child all the way through puberty to the teenage years to adulthood, and champion the cause of women at the very level of the top level of the executive. Something that we've depended on the men to do for us for well over 60 years, and we still have only 13% representation in parliament. The figures he gave about the last election, so we have just about 30-something female in parliament. It actually translates to 13%. Rwanda has well over 55% female participation in parliament, because they're putting the mechanisms to make sure that they have more women up there. Why? Because they are less corrupt. They are more inclined to focus on getting the job done. As mothers, we empathize more and we are more understanding and more appreciative of what it is that is going on. Then I end with this matter. There was this issue where somebody mentioned that, I think the General Secretary of the NPP or somebody said, but at her age, she should be menopausal. My God. The men at her age in that Jubilee House, what are they doing? Even under Viagra, what are they doing? Wasting their time. At least, I prefer a menopausal woman who will not use young men as her handbags and waste our taxpayers' money on them, and will focus on getting the job done. I'm done.
Thank you. Thank you. You're watching the Mother of All Talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji. We're talking about the choice of Professor Jenana Opoku-Agyemang as running mate of the National Democratic Congress. Musa Abatwa join us in Kumasi. Sena, we in the NDC believe that GM has made the right decision. However, no amount of character assassination against Professor Jenana Opoku-Agyemang will see the light of day. If you critically analyze those who are questioning and vilifying her credentials, they cannot match her children's standards, not talk of herself, because of politics. But JHS, okay. It's better they concentrate on appealing to Ghanaians because we are tired of the hardship and incompetence exhibited by this government. Mujib?
Yeah. Brother, thank you very much for the opportunity, and thank you to the management of Pan-African TV for the opportunity. We are grateful. Thank you to your viewers out there. Sena, what do I have to say? After a long search, after a long wait, finally, former President John Dramani Mahama, the flag bearer and leader of the National Democratic Congress, has made his decision. And then this decision was affirmed by the National Executive Committee of the National Democratic Congress. So we can only wish them well, and we congratulate our mother, our wife, our sister for the opportunity given to her. That is Professor Nana Opoku-Agyemang. After the announcement of Prof, a lot of people spoke about the appointment, and some of the issues my sister raised here is undoubtedly nobody is arguing about the achievement of Auntie Jane Nana Opoku-Agyemang, be it education as a lecturer, vice chancellor of the university, popular University of Cape Coast. That is very fantastic, and that is very good. And as Minister of Education, when President Mahama appointed her, she's done well. She succeeded in some areas, and some areas too, she didn't succeed. And that is true. But my worry is, I want to broaden this topic. When it comes to giving opportunity to our female counterpart, and for that matter, women, to thrive in every sphere of life in Ghanaian society, I think our laws are not discriminatory. The opportunity is given to every, whether be it male or female, to strive. And I want to borrow what Doc said. When you go to the primal and the junior, the basic level, in most cases, the females are even more than the males. But as you progress, you see the number dwindling. It is not about the constitution or the statutes, in general, the laws of the country, but I fault our cultural factors and setting. Let me give you a clear example. After my junior high school exams, a lady in my class performed very well. I think that time, he had agreed 6, but the father didn't allow her. She got admission to one of the best schools, but the father didn't allow her to go. What we later realized was that the father gave her to a man to marry, and that ended it. Today, she's there with about 4 or 5 cases, and then we are gone. So some of these issues are the issues that are militating against the development of our women in this country, not a deliberate policy or a deliberate crafting of our laws. That is the point. But now there's another important fact I want to hammer on. Doc, the courage to stand the pressure. We don't have to discriminate. It is very important. You give the opportunity, the person take advantage of the opportunity and thrive. When it comes to women in leadership positions, Doc, let's research, let's recall, even at the district assembly level, how many of our sisters that agree to put up themselves for elections. Let me don't go. When you mistakenly introduced my sister as the parliamentary candidate for, is it Efutu South or what? She said no. She said she's not the one. She's not in for those, not yet into those troubles. You see how it is. You see, sometimes, but that is how the game is. Then at a point, but I think both political parties, the MPP and the NDC, have done very well in terms of giving opportunity for the women in those political parties to thrive. Doc, let me give you an example. In 2014, the party national executive, MPP, took a decision to protect the women who were in parliament at that time, in opposition, members of parliament, not to be contested. Other members of the party vehemently opposed that decision. And if you recall, that time, every day, people were being bussed to the party headquarters to do demonstration and send petitions to the leadership of the party against that decision. So at a point, the party has to meet again and take a critical decision as to the policy was reversed because we're going into elections and the focus was to win the elections. Fine, it's a good policy. We wanted to protect the women, give them the opportunity. If they go to parliament, they can contribute in the national development. But your other own women and other men kick against the idea. And you need a consensus and at least majority to support the decision before you can move forward. But one cannot fault the New Patriotic Party of sidelining or not doing very well in trying to project women. For the first time now. Oh, but that's how true that is. So, current,
from the woman.
I hope you listen to Doc. The first woman Chief Justice we have was appointed by former President Kufuor, the New Patriotic Party then. And that is significant. Today we have a female chief of staff, Fremont Opare. Isn't that a very significant? When you go take the distance, the president, the vice president at the Jubilee House, the next is who? The next is the Chief Justice. So it is very significant. And today if you go to Parliament, you take the majority and the minority. The women in the minority MPs, they are more than the MPs in the minority in terms of numbers, raw numbers. So we have always given the opportunity for the women. You should also, excuse me to say, always be ready to take the advantage, the opportunity to also go up. Because the law is not saying that when you decide to contest, I should not contest. That is not what the law says. But the law is saying that the ground is there. You have the opportunity, the right. I have the right to contest. And first of all, we are all human beings. Let's get that one clear. So if you think, and that is the terrain, it is not only peculiar to Ghana alone, Doc, in terms of the rough terrain of the politics that we are doing. Even in advanced democracies, you see how sometimes the vilification and the attacks, you can go to America and other places, they are examples. So don't limit it to, we are trying. And I think that as a country, Ghana, we have done very well, significantly in terms of upliftment of women in all across every sphere of life. We have done, be it education, politics, health, engineering, everywhere Ghana, we have done well. If you are ready and the opportunity is given, you just take the opportunity. So I want to praise Auntie Jane of taking the opportunity at that time to get to where she is in terms of her academic achievement. Because I have been to university, I know how difficult it is, Doc, to even get your first degree. So I will not sit here and downplay the achievement of somebody, not only Auntie, for attaining that high level. However, let me state it clear that you can't gag us. We also have to interrogate and critique the achievement. You said, in her tenure as the Minister of Education, supervise the conversion of polytechnics into technical universities. That is good, that is achievement. But when it comes to the flaws, in respect of the scrapping of the teacher training allowances, you don't want us to talk. Nobody is saying that, Madam Jane, we will not say that. That is not our style of politics in this country. We will not insult. We will not say you are black or you are dark or you are not. No, that is, nobody is factoring beauty aspect into this. But you are come in, if the opportunity given and she becomes vice president, she's going to preside over matters. And that is the second highest office in the land. So people need to critique, especially her achievement right from education up to where she Minister of Education and where. But that is within our right. But when we say, people, hey, don't do this, don't do that. But that is not even our point. Our target and our point is the flag bearer of the National Democratic Congress. That is where our focus is. Because his picture will be on the ballot. And is the President John Dramani Mahama, former member of Parliament, Bole Bomboy, former Vice President to late Professor Tamils, President of the Republic of Ghana. We have seen his achievement. And that is what we are going to base. And the opportunity now is that we have also gotten the opportunity steering the affairs of the country on the basis that we'll be doing issue-based campaign. Nobody is going to insult anybody. Why should I insult anybody for what? When I believe my government is doing very well to uplift and improve on the living standards of the people of Ghana, I don't have the time to try to see, to insult. Why? To gain what? And I think that the populace out there are not ready for those things. What they are ready is, how are you going to solve their issues? And this is a person that in 2016, based on his track records, were rejected by the people of this country. I think that we need to remind the people of Ghana, that this is the person that not long ago, 4 years ago, who was on the helm of affairs and mismanaged the economy of this country. And then corruption was at his peak. Blah, blah, blah. And then we remind the people. And at the end of the day, the people of Ghana will take a decision as to who they will give the mandate to. So the target for now, I think that it's just a focus. But that move, by bringing, let me go into that, a woman, in all sincerity, is a smart move, because they just assess themselves and say, what new thing are we going to put there so that the criticism will not come? People will find it difficult to get something to say. Then that is, they put it. And after that, that is what we are experiencing. You know, after the announcement, anybody said anything, people will jump, hey, why are you criticizing a woman? But I say, but if she's a woman, she's a human being, and she has occupied positions before. So, and she's still trying to get to high position to pretend over us. So we need to critique. So that one, I think you have to also spare us and give us that opportunity. But that is the terrain. But largely, Madam talk of senior, what we have nothing to tell the people of Ghana. Anytime we are asked, we said free senior high school education. Maybe that is how it is. Some people would underplay the policy depending on where they are coming from and their background. But if you ask some of us where we are coming from and our background, it is very, very significant. Some people after senior high school level or after junior high school level could not get the opportunity to accomplish and go higher education because of how to manage and pay their school fees. It is very, very, and remember, the senior high school level is the turning point. When you are able to get it through, then you can go to university, you can go to polytechnic, you can go to training college, you can then advance your higher education. But when you get it wrong at the senior high school level, then you are doomed forever. And it is not about buildings. And let me state, no policy that you introduce that will not come with its challenges. It is very important. Fine, the introduction of the senior high school policy brings some challenges, but that is not surmountable. You could see government has brought in strategies to contain the situation. That is why the double track system was introduced. And government is aware numbers have increased, but infrastructure development across the country is going on. And sooner than later, the numbers will be contained and all this double track system will be a thing of the past. But Sena, even that notwithstanding, long ago, some of us have tuitions under trees. I remember my primary 3 and 4, look, was under trees. But what matters most is to educate your people. And so if you go out there, ask most of these senior educationists, people who have occupied very important position in society today, they never had it easy. Some had to travel long distance to be able to access education. Some sat under trees and have quality education. But today, they are using that knowledge to impact on other people. So the important thing I have said is that what happened to the FQ that we have talked, the free compulsory universal basic education, that is in the 1992 Constitution. When are we would you have implemented that thing? There should be a point in our lifetime we said, no, this is the time. We don't have to wait. Like you have told us that this is the time to bring a woman. You don't have to wait. So it's critical. So we expect all to embrace the policy because it is whether you are poor or rich, you have been taken care of. And that is significant. See now, from that village, some of us are coming from. If not education, we wouldn't have gotten the opportunity to sit here or sometimes even talk with the bourgeoisies and those who had a very affluent lifestyle and all those things. So let's don't underplay that as that policy. The only way we can get ourselves of the poverty we are talking is to educate our people. Let me give you a clear example. Today, people are blaming government by rising numbers of COVID, and that is not genuine. Because you go to some places, because of the people ignorant, they don't even appreciate the dangers of the virus. They don't even understand why they have to social distance. But when they understand the consequences, the people themselves will take their life into their own hands and do what is right. So a policy to educate the public, today you will not get the benefit. But the next few years to come, people will come praising those who were behind this noble idea. But for political sake, I think that what people want to say, you can say it. But in truly, from where I sit, this is not the only policy that the NDC have been criticized. I remember clearly in 2000 campaign when late Prof Mills and then former President J.A. Kufuor, they were crisscrossing the country. President Kufuor, one of the significant promises he was giving the people of Ghana, if you vote for me to become president, I will introduce the National Health Insurance policy. And then this is the thing that it was not going to be possible. How are you going to do it? No, that before that, the system that was in place was the cash and carry system. And many people lost their life as a result of that. Because you are in critical condition, you are carried to the hospital. What they need to do is to pay before, you have to cough out money before they attended to you. That was the system. Some of us witnessed people say, no, this cannot continue. When he got the opportunity to steer the affairs of this country, today we are not talking of introducing the policy of national health insurance. We are talking of sustainability of national health insurance policy in Ghana. That is what we are saying. And that is the new patriotic party. When we say we deliver, we don't promise and we don't deliver. We think big and we want to change, and we are indeed changing the fortunes of this country. We know where we took government from. So that is the point. So now I hope you are getting the argument. So anybody sitting in his own comfort zone thinking that our focus will be on anti-Jane Opoku-Agyemang, then might be dreaming. Because we have defeated that player before and we have scored the goals. And the strategy we have used to defeat and score the goal, that strategy is still there. And it's still the same person. And that is where we are going to focus on. That is most important to us. And nobody can gag us that we can't criticize and bring the actions or the performance of the former president to bear for the people of Ghana to see. You can take that. It's our right to do that. Just like they are also criticizing Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, the flag bearer and leader of the New Patriotic Party, based on what he's doing. Sena.
Thank you. Thank you, Mujib. Abdul Mumin Adam is saying, good morning. In fact, I enjoy Mujib's submissions. I just wish that all MPP communicators could do it the way he actually speaks to the facts and criticizes when there is the need. Sends regards to Mr. Pratt. And this one is coming from Mr. Makaflu, who says that there's nothing wrong with critique. What is unacceptable is the insult from irresponsible and have... Okay. You say there's nothing wrong, then you go on the same path. I hope I got that name right. So how can President Akufo-Addo, Chief Justice Nombo, and Electoral Commission all be in isolation? Isolation simply means you have contracted the COVID-19 virus. So I ask, were they meeting secretly? Okay. So Sena, have you ever seen any great person in Ghana that MPP have never painted him or her black? I'm still wondering why Ghanaians are yet to know the real people called MPP. Let us leave them very soon. Okay. And so never ask when it is written. Thank you very much for that message. And Kojocho Mbrafo says, Sena, ask Mujib to answer a very simple question. Since the MPP government claimed to have reinstated the nurses and teachers allowance, how much arrears are they in? Are they current with the payments? And then he says, ask him to answer, please. Your listeners need to understand the cheap politics of the MPP. What the NDC administration did then was to ask the student teachers and nurses to take the students' loan, since they themselves wanted their institutions to be upgraded to tertiary institutions. Today, some students have gotten the allowances haven't gotten the allowances for close to a year. Tafa in Amahia says, I'm highly disappointed in the comment made by Honorable Chairman Sabonso. Honorable Bonsu is one of the people I have so much respect for because he's one of the best MPs we have in Parliament. But this kind of comment is becoming one too many. I remember when he was asked about a Ghana running mate in their party, and he said they didn't have any Ghana who is qualified for a running mate in their party. How can he say someone who managed to become a professor cannot govern a country because the person is female? If you are looking for the best leader in Europe today, Angela Merkel will be the best. Her quality leadership cannot be compared with any leader in any of the Western countries today. As for my good friend, YB's press conference, and also some of the MPP members, we should ignore them. Because even if we bring Angel Gabriel to be our running mate, they will still say Angel Gabriel has problems with God. Mr. Pratt.
Well, Sena, first, I'd like to offer some advice to the new Patriotic Party and its spokespersons. And I offer this advice freely and with the best of intentions. We are living in a situation in which COVID-19 cases have risen to 23 and are still rising. Indeed, it is possible if we were to do mass random testing to reach 100,000 cases. And so, as we sit here in the studio, the city is continuing its collapse. Today, in July 2020, the budget deficit is widening. The crisis in our educational institutions is getting deeper and deeper. Everybody is focusing attention on the spread of COVID-19 in some of the secondary schools. But we do know that there's a bed-bug infestation in also some of the secondary schools, which has led to death of students. And so we are keenly aware of that. Today, as we sit here, the level of loans we are contracting is becoming a major holdback on our development efforts and so on. And I can continue listing the problems that confront us as a people today. Why? The One Village, One Dam project is in crisis. And only last week I saw videos of dams, so-called dams, which have no water in them in the rainy season, and so on. So if in the light of all of this, all they can do is to pile up insult upon insult upon insult on one person, the outcome is predictable. And very soon, all of us are going to see our smoothness level. This is free advice. So rather than concentrating on demonizing one person, it will serve the MPP much better if they look at the conditions in which we exist today as a Ghanaian people and try to explain why we are here and try to give us hope and so on. This is free advice for the MPP. They have choices to make. They can decide that going into the December 7th election, they are going to spend all their efforts trying to do the impossible of demonizing the NDC's vice presidential candidate. It's their choice they can make. They can also make the choice of explaining the failings in public administration over the last 3.5 years. That's a choice they can make. I would not make that choice for them. But if I were them, I would make the most prudent choice of giving the people of Ghana hope in the midst of despair, giving the people of Ghana hope in the midst of economic difficulties, giving the people of Ghana hope in the midst of this situation of total confusion and chaos. These are choices for the MPP to make. You know, Sena, since Madam Professor Sena Opoku-Agyemang was announced as the running mate of the of the National Democratic Congress, I've heard many comments. The most interesting comment I've made came from a texter, somebody who was texting into a television program. I couldn't hold my ribs. I laughed so much that I nearly fell sick. You know what this gentleman texted? He said, this Mahama cry, why? We are playing a football match. And then you go and select a Messi and put Messi in the game. When Messi gets the ball, if you don't tackle Messi, he's going to score. If you tackle him small to penalty. And I thought that this was a brilliant text message. And indeed, that is the reality that we are living in today since Monday. Look, some of the things which have been said by leaders, not ordinary members of the New Patriotic Party, is annoying to the extreme. I mean, it's a betrayal of backwardness, extreme backwardness. She has become menopausal and therefore is incapable of thinking and offering wise counsel. My goodness, my Jove. Who says this in July 2020? I mean, the level of backwardness is shocking. My brother, do you know the number of women who have passed the age of 60? And you insult all of them. You lump them together and you insult them. I hear spokespersons of the MPP, including my very good brother Mujib, make the point that, oh, we appointed the first female Chief Justice. And we appointed that one, and we appointed that one. Check their ages. So, you appointed women who were menopausal, therefore incapable of thinking, and placed them at the helm of affairs. Is that what you're telling us? You don't know? You don't know?
We don't have to give them credit. No. No, these are people who... No.
Please let him. If he didn't.
So you, on your own admission, are telling the people of Ghana that you deliberately appointed people who are incapable of thinking and offering wise counsel. I mean, you think that we are insulting Professor Sena Opoku-Agyemang, but you forget that we are insulting all of us who are Ghanaians. And in the process, insulting yourselves. I mean, the level of banality is shocking. And you see, if this were coming from your vigilante groups and so on, perhaps we would excuse it. But your topmost leaders, I listened to the majority leader And I could only bury my face in shame. And I listened to him. And he said, look, perish my thoughts. And mind you, the majority leader speaks impeccable English. Yeah. And therefore what he says in English must be taken seriously. Because he knows what he's talking about. And he says, perish my English, perish my thoughts. That just in case former President Mahama is re-elected and he dies, can you imagine this teacher as president? I mean, that's a loaded statement. This teacher. So teachers are also not qualified?
I didn't mention this teacher. You are whipping the devil again, and that is not fair.
No, so teachers are also incompetent. Teachers are incompetent.
This one there, you have to say, he didn't mention teachers.
Oh, Mujib, if you allow me to continue.
No, but Chairman, let me be fair with that.
I'm being very fair.
He didn't mention teachers, Chairman. I listened to him.
Let him.
Why? The majority leader starts by saying that the professor has poise. She speaks good English. She's a good teacher. But just in case the unfortunate happens, can you imagine this teacher as president? Shocking. And the other incredible part is that when she's describing a woman who has been offered the opportunity to serve this nation, one of the most important things for him is the woman's poise. Sena, the woman's poise, how she presents herself physically, that is the attribute the majority leader decided to comment on. I felt ashamed. I felt completely ashamed. She speaks good English. So what? Is that a criteria? Leave that aside. Leave the monoposal bit aside. Leave the speaking of good English aside and so on. Listen to other comments which have been made about the woman. And in fact, I do not want to dignify those comments. Those comments which are an insult to womanhood. Those comments which indicate the misogynistic attitude of some of the people we have in the political space. I won't dignify them, so I pack them aside. Then, the other issue which has been raised is that, what did she do when she became Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Coast? What did she do? Fortunately, in the course of the week, many lecturers on the campus of the University of Cape Coast and other universities have spoken out loud and clear. And I'm convinced that she was a visionary leader when she became Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Coast. One of the most important things that she did in that university was to begin to look for the capacity of the university to generate resources so that its dependence on central government can be minimized. Now, if that was not visionary, what else could be visionary? So she actually set up a project for the production of glassware which are used in the university science laboratory. And her vision was that at some point in the development of that university, secondary schools, training colleges, and so on, which did science, would depend on the university for the supply of this glassware. So the furnace at the university was rehabilitated at great cost to do this job. If she did nothing at all apart from this, that was visionary. Something which was highly commendable. And she did many other things, but I'm not even going to go into that. You understand? So, for people that we know, the people that we know, who are standing up to ask questions about her achievement in that university, my goodness, if people had to question her credibility, is it those people that the NPP put forward to go and criticize her? Incredible. The other thing we are told is that when she was Minister for Education, she failed. How did she fail? She failed because government promised to build a number of e-blocks, okay? And that at the end of the 4-year term, only a certain number had been built. Not all the 200 had been built. And that is the fault of Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyemang. How is that? How is that her fault? Was she the one who was generating the resources? Was he the one supervising the construction? The building of the E-blocks was a good policy. Nobody can challenge the fact that building more blocks, more structures for secondary school education was a good policy. When it comes to paying contractors and so on, it is not done by the Minister of Education. Indeed, only ignorant people can make that criticism. Because when construction works are awarded in our country, it is the Architectural and Engineering Services Department who supervises the work to make sure that they are completed in due time, not ministers. But there's so much ignorance in the political system that we will blame a minister for it. We are told that teachers' allowances were delayed. Should it take people in the New Patriotic Party to be telling us about delays in the payment of teachers' allowances? Right now, teachers are listening to us. And I hope that they will react by sending us messages to confirm whether what I'm going to say now is true or not. I've heard teachers complain, newly recruited teachers complain, that for 6 months they were not paid their salaries, not allowances. The accounts have this proverb which says, "Sawu we of one sa, ya shawudia." When you are busily chewing on the monkey's hand, please try and look at your own. Look at your own hands. You can delay the payment of teacher salaries for 6 months and have the effrontery to complain about the delay in the payment of allowances. Salary, you know, fit. And then you are complaining about allowances and so on. Shocking. Look, we can decide to have a debate about the introduction of the free senior high school, whether it was appropriate, whether it was timely, and so on. We can have that debate. But you see, if you're going to use that fact or facts around that to whip anybody, you must realize that counter-arguments will be made. When we were going into the 2016 elections, what were the two positions which were canvassed by the New Patriotic Party and the National Democratic Congress? Two positions were canvassed. The New Patriotic Party said, this is the time to implement free SHS in a comprehensive manner. One goal. As soon as we get elected, we are going to give you free senior secondary education. All right? The National Democratic Congress came and said, look, free education is in our constitution. We are a duty to provide it. But we are going to implement it stage by stage. The NPP said, no, you should implement it at once. Alright? We elected the NPP into power. Did they keep their promise? Did the NPP keep its promise? The NPP turned around to do exactly what the National Democratic Congress promised. It was for the first years, then it came to the second years, and then eventually it came to the third year. So who was right? Me, I am an unrepentant Nkrumahist. And I don't see anything which will push me from my position as an Nkrumahist. The philosophy of the Nkrumah government was to provide access to education for every citizen. Not just education, but quality education. Free access. That was the policy. So I believe in free education at all levels. From the cradle to the grave. I cannot be opposed to the implementation of a policy of free education at the senior high school level. I cannot be opposed to that. But these are the facts. These are the promises which were made. The MPP, eventually in power, implemented free SHS the same way that the NDC had promised. So why do you use this as a whip against Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyemang? Why? And then we are told that, oh, she actually, or under her watch, cancelled allowances to nurses, trainees, and teacher trainees, and so on. Is that true? Is that true? Because I listened to the debate very carefully. And my understanding then was that, look, there was the need to expand access to these institutions. And that given budgetary constraints at the time, it was not possible to expand access into these institutions if there wasn't a certain level of rationalization. So what was the level of rationalization which was needed? One, upgrade these institutions to a certain level, and if you upgrade them to a certain level, let all institutions in that category become beneficiaries of whatever is available at that level. And whatever was available at that level was students' loans and so on. If I lie, tell me. So that we can keep large numbers, we can train large numbers of people in those institutions. The NPP said no. Allowance, put money in the pocket of the students. True. And you shouldn't be taking anything from the NPP. True. NPP came into power and decided to put money into the pockets of the students. But it had consequences. One of the consequences was the reintroduction of the quota system, so that the numbers into these institutions were reduced. So a few people managed to get in, they had some coins in their pocket, but a lot more were blocked from entering. Let's do the cost-benefit analysis. Let's do the cost-benefit analysis. Before, nurses trainees, if they graduated, they were guaranteed that at some point in the future, they will be given employment. Today, that guarantee has been removed. So, if you train as a nurse, you come out, you go and do national service. When you finish your national service, you go and stay home and go and look for your own job. There's no guarantee that you're going to get a job. How does that make sense? That when you are in school, we'll put some money in your pocket. But when you finish school, when you are much older, when you have a bigger responsibility in life and so on, we leave you to your God and your faith. Very sensible policy, isn't it? extremely sensible policy. But that's the reality in which we are living. Okay? That's the reality in which we are living today. Look, as for the need to have affirmative action for women, only backward people can argue against it. Affirmative action for women, this is the time for affirmative action for women. To come and say that in our time we appointed a woman chief justice and so on is to miss the point. The appointment of a woman chief justice does not change the fact that this is a male-dominated world. Even the enactment of law would not change that fact. You understand? Why? Even the appointment of Professor Sena Opoku-Agyemang would not change that fact. We know about Barack Obama. He was elected President of the United States of America. Today, the Black Lives Matter movement is gathering momentum because racism is on the ascendancy. The election of Barack Obama did not change that equation. You understand what I'm saying? So when we begin to count the number of appointments we have made and so on, we miss the point. We miss the point completely. Me, I'm convinced that the election, selection, or appointment of the professor as the running mate to former President John Dramani Mahama is not sufficient to change gender biases in our country. It's not sufficient. Okay? It is one step, one symbolic step. It's an important step, but that is not what is going to change anything. You understand what I'm saying? Now, look at our society generally and so on. And then we are told that, oh, she is not an economist. Massa, go back to 1957. Go back to 6th March 1957. Look at the political space. How many vice presidents have we had who are economists? One. In a period of more than 60 years. And indeed, when we had one vice president who was an economist, what happened to the economy of Ghana? What is happening to the economy of Ghana today? I'm not going to provide the answer, but look at what happens to the economy of Ghana. And this emphasis on academic laws and so on can only be made by people who have no sense of history. My brother, one of the most distinguished heads of states for all time, throughout history, is Toussaint Louverture. Toussaint Louverture was the founder of modern-day Haiti. He never went to school. Toussaint never went to school. Toussaint taught himself. And in history, military history, Toussaint is one of the best generals that mankind has ever produced. Because Toussaint's army defeated the army of Napoleon, the hero of the Europeans. He fought Napoleon and defeated Napoleon in spite of the fact that he had never been to school. Toussaint gave hope to the African people, to black people, wherever they may be, and he had never stepped into a classroom. So this thing about not having a PhD in economics and so on, where is it coming from? In modern history, Ernesto Che Guevara, the Latin American revolutionary, respected everywhere in the world and so on, was a medical officer. And yet, he became the governor of the Central Bank of Cuba. And his performance is rated one of the highest in Cuban history. So, where is this coming from? this criticism, where is it coming from? Look, I had heard about Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyemang a long time ago, many years ago. Because I lived in Cape Coast, and I worked for the Ghana News Agency. And one of the first study groups that I belonged to was on the campus of the University of Cape Coast. And I was in the same study groups with people like Dr. Agyemang of the sociology department. I was in the same study group with you know. So I almost lived on the campus. I was living in the Ola estate. And there were stories of this female lecturer who was so affable and who was grabbing knowledge with gusto and so on. So I heard about her in those days. Then I also came to realize that she was very close to some of my friends on the university campus. I mean, Professor Tabrichun, for example, was a very close, good friend of the lady. So we were hearing all the stories about her and so on. But the first time I saw her feely face to face was when she delivered the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Lectures on the campus of the University of Cape Coast. And I listened to her. I sat in that lecture, I listened to her, and I said, my goodness, we should have hope for the future of this country. Because she made the case for the collective self-reliance of African states and pointed to the fact that neocolonialism was a major problem for our development, and made the point that when Nkrumah spoke about African unity and African self-reliance, it was the path to toe. And since that day, I've been so impressed by this extraordinary, remarkable woman. I've been so impressed, and I've followed her closely. Only last year, the English department of the University of Cape Coast organized a series of lectures to celebrate Professor Atabrichum. Somehow, strangely, and I can't explain it up to today, I was selected to be on one of the panels with Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyemang. And I said to myself, how can I be on this panel of professors and so on? But I went. And I listened to how she presented a paper which linked the development of the art to the development of all sectors of the national life. And made the point that literature was as important to national development as engineering and so on. Brilliant. Extremely brilliant. She had a standing ovation. Brilliant woman and so on. And I was so very impressed by this woman. Now, we are talking about the fact that she's not an economist. As if economics is rocket science. What can you study in the world which would not involve some study of economics? What can we study in the world which would not automatically involve some study of economics? But that is not all. She has a master's in economic policy management. Should you only be a PhD before you are recognized? This is a woman with a master's in economic policy management. And yet, her opponent said that, oh, she's not an economist. And so, what do you want from her? I mean, incredible. But you see, Massa, look, we should stop the joke and look at the business of building this nation. You know, the strategy is itself not good for the New Patriotic Party. This woman's vice presidential candidature was announced around 5 o'clock. In 30 minutes' time, the New Patriotic Party was holding a press conference to tell us how she's so unsuitable and must be rejected. What that demonstrates is panic. Panic. How else can you explain that? Full-blown press conference. Why? Within the last week, if you listen to radio and so on, former President John Mahama doesn't matter anymore. It's not an issue anymore. All the guns have been turned on this innocent professor. If I were President Mahama, I'd be very happy. If he didn't intend this, it is coming to him as a bonanza, delivered from his opponents. If he intended it, then he must be a very smart guy. But I don't think he intended it. So you are giving him a bonanza, free bonanza and so on. My brother, one of the criticisms that I heard of Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyemang, I'm sure you've all heard it and seen it. One of your leaders, Mujib, videoing himself and saying that, look at her head. Look at her, from her head to her toe. Look at what she wears. And so, what impudence. What arrogance. This woman, look at her head. What is wrong with her head? And you see, the double standard is shocking. When newspapers publish real photographs of the sitting president, there are complaints that the newspapers are not being fair to the president. They should have selected better photographs and so on. When you sit on television and you say, look at the woman's head, what are you doing? How is that different from those newspapers who select photographs which are not so complimentary of the president and publish? That you can do that. Sit on television and say, look at her head, from her head to her toe. What is wrong with her toe? Is that an issue? Is this how we should conduct politics in our country? Maybe my sense of beauty is warped. And I'm not going to say that I'm the best appreciator of beauty. I can't say that. I'm not arrogant enough to say that. But from my warped eyes and so on, this woman, I think she's a beautiful woman. I'm not saying that the vice presidency is reserved for beautiful people. It is not. What we need in a vice president is not beauty. It's not handsomeness. What we need from a vice president is the ability to think through our problems and to find solutions to our problems. What problems am I talking about? How Ghanaians will have access to potable water. How we'll be able to educate our children so that they can grow up to become like you, like Mujib, like Madam, like Professor. That should be the headache of our president. The headache of our president and vice president should be about how to open access to health. First of all, to prevent us from falling sick, and when we fall sick, so that we can get treatment. The duty of a vice president is to increase the housing stock, to make sure that we have social housing in our country. The vice presidency is not a beauty or handsome contest. So those who want to reduce it to a beauty contest, they are welcome to do so. But you see, if you have a woman at 68 who looks as gorgeous as this professor, and you can make a point that she's ugly, then maybe something is wrong with your eyes. Then maybe your standards must be very low. Your standards of beauty must be very low. I look at this woman, and you know what makes me proud? There is no sign that she has bleached her skin. No sign that she has bleached her skin. No sign that she's using skin toning creams. What does that tell us? That she believes in her Africanness. She's proud of who she is. She's proud of her color. Do you want anything more than that? Perhaps you will be satisfied if she had bleached her skin a little. It would have been very, you know what I mean? Huh? If she had put tons of makeup on her face, perhaps she would be beautiful to you and so on. Beauty is not the issue here. But if beauty is the issue here, putting pons on your face is not beauty. Bleaching your skin is not beauty. That's a beautiful woman. And I don't say that her qualification is her beauty. Her qualification shouldn't be her beauty. It is not important. Please, let's talk about serious issues. Let's think about our country. Look, Ghana is one of the 5 largest producers of gold in the world. How much are we getting for gold production? Why are we not focusing attention on how the people of Ghana would own their own resources and exploit these resources for their own benefit? We have oil and gas. Our total stake in our oil and gas is 30.5%. And you are talking about beauty? What's wrong with you? Talking about beauty in these circumstances?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Pratt. Before we bring, let me read a couple of comments just to bring this to this particular topic to a close. Dr. David Percy is sending me a comment. He says, Sena, clearly JDM NDC's choice of Jane Nana Opoku-Agyemang as vice president running mate has seriously wrong-footed and unhinged the MPP. It has caused many leading members of the MPP, their director of communications, their leader in parliament, among others, to develop instant verbal diarrhea and to spout some of the most idiotic statements about women and our governance. Indeed, the NDC's choice of running mate has laid bare the deep-seated male chauvinist trick and misogynism. Okay. And says, please watch this space for more of such toxic nonsense from the same sources. He says, Alidu in Tamale says, isn't the leadership of current MPP government staging a political drama that seems to be alien to the democracy our contemporary Ghanaians cherished and pursued for all along? He continues and says the political ambiguities of MP government are contradictory and controversial. Because on one instance, a Ghanaian 65-year civil servant retiree opted to continue serving the nation in the civil service, and his wish was applauded by MPP government. But on another instance, a Ghanaian patriot opted dedicating or to forfeiting his 3 years annual leave by serving his dear nation as his gesture of patriotism, startlingly was grudgingly condemned by the new patriotic party. This one is from Idrisu Ibrahim, who says there was even 9 months delay of teacher's salary. That was even 9 months delay of teacher's salary and not 6 months. This one says, Papa in a palm says, hi, Sena, Mujib must know that their strategy was deceitful, but we are not asleep. They will see their smoothness level. Some more. Wayo from Somania says, first woman Speaker of Parliament was appointed by the National Democratic Congress. That was all he sent. And
These are not appointed.
yeah, elected. Yeah.
They are not appointed by the president.
Yeah.
They are elected by parliament.
This one says, please ask Mujib Rahman that when they came to power, what have they done to the tertiary education, especially technical universities? It was converted by the previous government, but they didn't finish. So what did they do? What did they do subsequently? Kodecho Mbwafo is asking, Sana, my big brother Kwesi is drooling over my auntie now. Are we safe? He said, yes, Auntie Nana is truly gorgeous inside and outside. If looks were the qualifying factor for leadership, we wouldn't have certain people at the helm of our country today. Okay. know what I mean. Well, I'll end it there. I'll end it there. So we are moving to the matter of COVID-19 and the rising number of cases we are seeing. The medical officers, the nurses, among several other workers are complaining. In fact, one of the things they said significantly this week is that government needs to take a second look at their definition of what a frontline health worker is. Because it's even those who are not included in that category by government's definition that are getting infected. I will start once again with Doc on his thoughts. This time around, we do not have such liberty of time, so 10 minutes each. So Doc, on COVID-19.
Thank you very much. I think the issue of COVID-19, we've all come to realize that, as Uncle Kwesi said in his submission, the figures and the numbers are becoming scary. In fact, I was talking to a colleague yesterday, and he was asking me a question that, do I still follow the numbers that the Ghana Health Service have been bringing us, so the ones in a while? You see, let me go back to you remember the debate about Ghana reaching a peak? I remember it became a topical issue. I heard people like Prof. Alhaji and co, bringing their views. So I'm beginning to ask, so when we got to the peak, what happened? Peak was supposed to come down. But now it's as if the numbers we are, because the interesting thing also, Sena, is that I think the change in the definition of discharges and also brought some kind of confusion. Yeah. So I think, as a friend was saying the other day, perhaps that could even influence the former deputy minister's decision that even though I was told by doctors that I had a virus, I still want to go and monitor my registration. Sena, so during the week, I don't know whether how true it is, Uncle can confirm this to me. A statement I learned attributed to the health minister saying that the president and themselves, they are all tired of whatever is going on, whether it's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you see, Sena, for me, it's a sign of the fact that whatever we have gotten to now with the COVID situation is we've all resigned, or the leadership have resigned to the state that we cannot get over whatever is happening. And I'm particularly worried because we've always been told by this government that, and every time the president comes to address us, we are supplying PPEs, we are producing so amount. And so it's so disturbing and sad. In fact, I listened to the statement issued by the GMA, the Nurse and Midwifery Council or so, when they still insisted that many of their members are still at risk. In fact, I think now the number is about 700 or something, number of health professionals who have been infected. We have about 9 deaths so far from that. So, Sena, what it also tells us is that where are these PPEs going to? In fact, I remember one of the debates I heard on radio, which I felt so sad, was the issue. You remember when the GMA complained about being given cloth mats to use for surgical operations, and they complained that that could not be best because, it could be used for other categories, but as a medical doctor going to an operation cannot be allowed to use such masks. I heard the Ghana Tourism, Ghana Standard Board also come to defend that there was nothing wrong with that. But then I realized that if a medical doctor is complaining about using cloth mats, definitely we should listen to the person. I believe that what we have gotten to so far is the fact that the managers of the health system of this country have not been fair to us. And let me be frank about it. You see, from the beginning, the approach of fighting COVID was more reactionary. And I have said it from the beginning that I see when other countries like Rwanda and co started taking proactive measures, where were we? We still felt, it's just like typically I tell people the way Trump treated the COVID thing, or it's a Chinese disease. You see how the Americans suffered for it. And I think, see, the same thing happened, people even felt it will never get here. So now, from the onset, the issue about providing of PPE, and look at even how we defined frontliners. And up to now, the issue about who a frontline is still in contention. We heard the president and the minister saying, we invited we involved the GMA and co to talk about, but still we don't know who a frontline medical practitioner is. And so it's sad I listened to when the professor died, all the professor planned died, and you could hear the number of people who were complaining about the fact that such a person, and the recent medical doctor who died in Class Hospital, Dr. Kesi. I mean, I have a friend who had a personal experience with that medical doctor, a very nice gentleman, passionate doctor. But I see, because the point is that when you decide somebody, because I feel personally that by now every medical officer should be given a PPE. Because see, the danger is that, you see, recently my own university hospital, they've closed down the emergency in most of the blocks. So you see, the one of the danger we have now is that people are even now scared to go to hospitals. Because the nurses are there, they don't have, and you see, the danger is even the typical rural areas. You talk to people in my South constituency, the Peking government hospital, I was there at funeral the last time I went, and nurses are complaining, they don't have basic, masks to use. So now, the question is, where is all the money we got from the IMF, the World Bank, the money we've gotten for the COVID fund? Where are those monies? And see, the danger is that when you do that and you talk, people feel that you are doing politics. But the point is that these are people who are sacrificing their lives. In fact, let's look at the SHS thing. So now, I watched the video of what happened in KUST SHS. Though it may not be COVID related, but the question is, if the child was at home, would that have happened? Why do we have to expose our children to that situation? I mean, the WAEC, Nigeria have come out openly to say that we don't write the WAEC again. So now, I listened to Professor Stephen Adai, who said we could have found a better way of also getting the final SHS students to get to the university. So that is why people are beginning to argue that the motive for getting the student back to school is political and not educational. Because and I find something very interesting. If you can tell me a parent not to have access to my child, but you can allow electoral commission officers to go to the school to register them, then that is interesting to me. And for that's the French study is very interesting that it is only in Ghana that the GES now gives more advice on health issues than the Ghana Medical Association. So the GS now says that we have provided safety precautions, we provided, but so the point is that, look at what happened at Accra Girls recently. It's like parents, and this is, if you're a parent, all of us are parents. Angosu is older, we have younger parents, even the basic schools level, even when the university said they opened. I told people that personally, I wouldn't go to any class to teach. So whilst we're doing the online thing, some of us prefer the online. So I feel that the whole nation needs to look at, you see, gradually I'm getting worried because as if the managers of the economy, the health minister and co, the state actors, are now beginning to push the problem back to the citizen. Ghana fast wedding, Ghanaians are, yes, but I also believe that if the leadership have put in place measures, so now how many numbers do we have before we declare the lockdown? But now look at the numbers. So now the argument is that the discharges are more than the active cases. But look at the number of cases we record in a day. For the first time in our COVID history, we have about 800 cases a day. Was it not the case about last week? So Sena, it is a reflection that we are losing the war, the battle. And I believe that it is a reflection of the leadership failure. Because if doctors and nurses can sacrifice, I listened to the secretary of the nurses and midwifery, who is my friend, David Tinkra, and you see, the frustration is that they have said all they are supposed to say. But no matter what they say, people feel that they are just making noise. I believe that as a nation, we have a role as a citizen. But Sena, I believe that if we want to push the blame on the citizen, then the leadership must also provide what they're supposed to provide. Where are the PPEs? Why can't you provide the things you promised? Even the issue about the 50% allowances and even, the people came to complain. I don't know whether they have been paid now. I have no evidence now. But see, the point is that, and I listened to the press conference and the GMA people said the level of confidence and motivation is low. Because now if you go to work and you can be exposed to the sense that anybody who comes is, a risk. So I believe that as a nation, the leadership, and as Council said, these are some of the issues that as a nation, our leaders, our majority leader and co should be interested in. rather than attacking people's personalities and calling them in. I mean, and it's the interesting thing is that it's also not very strange or very interesting that now we are told the president is not in isolation, the chief justice is in isolation, but we are being told to go and register. Then when we go and register, we see the total disregard for safety protocol. And as for the electoral commission, at times when I listened to one interview, they grant one of the director of electoral services saying that GMA can give the advice, they can go and do their work. When people get sick, do they go to the electoral commission for treatment? So now let's be fair to this system. I believe that we all have a responsibility. Whilst we do our part, the state actors, the political leadership must also show leadership, so that we don't expose the life of our children and our citizens.
Doc, thank you. Thank you. Before I come to Mujib, two messages. One from Alhaji Akumapam, who says, good morning for Sena and your panelists. I just can't think far. Why? So all those days, MPP are jabbing the NDC to choose our running mate is just to insult that person. Is that all the MPP can do? And then he says, the NPP should, okay. I said, but I believe in discerning people of Ghana. I believe the discerning people of Ghana will show them come December 7th, inshallah. Fellow Ghanaians, never forget the story. Thank you very much for that message, Hadia. And then one from our WhatsApp line from Charles Sudoku, James in Agomeda, who says that, are we saying that a woman who led an entire university for many years cannot become a vice president? Which society is more difficult to lead? Of course, it's an academic society where everyone knows his right. The good prof is the best thing that has happened to this nation. For us teachers, the only allowance we have on our pay slip, retention premium, was given by NDC government. It's 15% of our salary. For us teachers, a nomination is a good news. Mujib?
Yeah. COVID. I think we'll continue to talk about it till we begin to see the numbers coming down or a better insight. But I listened to Doc very well, and this one day I disagree with Doc's position, because that is where probably we are still where we are, because people are trying to just score political points and all those things. But that is the major point. I think we have to be nationalistic and begin to approach it national, all involved to get to where really we want to be. But you can blame, because I will blame even people that are stronger, countries that are stronger in terms of their economy and their medical system. But you could see how COVID has done to them. So I am yet to be told maybe a country that were able to provide 100% of all the PPE up to health workers that they were in complaints. Any country that were affected by COVID, even America, UK, doctors came out and medical staff came out and complained. And so now, even today, some of the companies that were producing this PPE have been shut down because of COVID. Now, even if you have the money and you want to buy, import some, where are you going to get it? It forced countries to start local manufacturing. So when you are blaming government, it is the responsibility of government to respond. How far we have met the demands of these people, it is important. That is why sometimes the Ministry of Information, through the Ghana Health Service, has to give out the numbers to the public out there, not to suggest that government is not doing anything about it. But from where I sit, COVID doesn't know NDC, it doesn't know MPP, it is Ghanaians, and the life of Ghanaians matter. So in your own small corner, if you are working and doing to protect the life of Ghanaians, and I think it's very important. Doc handled a lot of people. As a lecturer, could see the number of students he interacted with. Either whether it's now not physical, but the virtual learning now. But you can let the people understand the dangers. Wherever we find ourselves, madam, we educate the people. But to narrow it down and try to blame government. But what could have been the alternative? Well, the response so far, it's not, that is the way other countries are doing. But the point is, I don't know what to say, but would have also wished that we don't get to where we are now in terms of the numbers. But I think though government has the responsibility of making sure the demands of workers, especially those in the medical profession, are taken care of, it is also largely light on we the citizen to also be very, very careful with the steps, especially adhering to the laid down protocols, preventive protocols. It's also very, very important. Sena, but sometimes you can also tell, you have to face it real. When the restoration started and the way people were rushing, and if you see the queue, you don't need any rocket science to tell you that others will get infected. It is very important. I think that informed the Electoral Commission to now go back and come out, try to enforce physical distancing at the polling stations to make sure you follow all the protocols. It is very, very important. So let's keep fighting. But when we lose the spirit and we've thrown our hands in despair and say we have lost the fight, then we are in trouble. We are in trouble. So now it is a pandemic and we have been hit. And we have nowhere to run to. What we need to do is to continue fighting and continue doing what is expected of us. Whether you are a lecturer, whether you are a political activist, whether you are a media personality, so now where your voice can go, try educate the people, let them understand. And I think the bottom line is the education. So I kept telling the Ministry of Information, awake your information services department. Try to let the people talk to them in their own language, their own language they understand. The dangers. It's very important. So now we are told the more you come together, a group, that is where it spreads. So we try to limit the numbers. It is very important. That is why when you read the medical professional statements, though they are forced to come out and explain to government the challenges they are facing. But not that all, they also warn us, the citizens, to look, we are getting to where, if you are not careful and we are overwhelmed, then when you are infected and you are taken to the hospital, who will be there to take care of you? So it is the responsibility of all of us to look at it and begin to work something out, and that thing is to adhere to the preventive measures. But to the extent that you want to score political point, I laughed. I said, oh, then if it the other way, if it were the other way around, how are you also going to respond? That is how it is. But looking at our kind of politics we do, even if Biden will be hitting Trump because of failures in COVID fight, I know, and I am not surprised that the largest opposition party will be hitting government because of the rising numbers. But I think so far, government has done what government can do and is still doing. But let's keep fighting. And but from where I sit, and in my own opinion, I don't think as a people and as a country we have lost the fight against COVID-19. No, I don't believe, and we haven't reached that stage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mujib, thank you. This one doesn't come with a name. This message says COVID-19 is a political issue and must be dealt with politics. Ghanaians want competent leaders to solve it. It is a salvation of human beings related to health. Kamala Ganya says, so all the time MPP was calling on Mahama to appoint his running mate, they were only interested in knowing who they can insult and run down. Thank you, Kamala, for that message. This one says, good morning, Sena. The 50% for we frontliners has not come as at today. And even that, you have to apply for it too. That's their way of doing things. Yes, I know that for sure. Stephen Cognato says, good morning, Sena. And to, okay, it's Gabriela rather, not Gisela. Says, isn't it surprising that we picked at 4,700 and successfully declined to 23,834? The risks are increasing each passing day. The rising figures present a clear insight of the community presence of the virus. Is it not funny that parents are unable to visit their children in school, and yet EC officials and party agents whose statuses are not known are allowed to enter into schools to register their children? Is it not obvious what the opening of those schools was meant for? We are sitting on a time bomb. Thank you for that message. And this one is coming from Dennis Akwete, who says the NPP can be serious. Indeed, if President Nana-Addo had the opportunity to at least manage a teacher training college before becoming president, he would have managed Ghana far better than he is doing today. Truth be told, for COVID-19, the Supreme Court failed to take judicial notice to hold the needless voter registration. But I am very glad, sadly though, that the COVID-19 is now working well. Perhaps they thought only we, the ordinary Ghanaians, could be sacrificed on the altar of the COVID-19 for the achievement of that Jezebelic and inordinate agenda. But they lie bad. For we are all involved as the COVID-19 has now started the judgment, even before the Supreme Court speaks. Dennis Akwete sends that one. Thank you. And then let me do Chris from Ashalibosho before I come to Gabriela. The Sena, President Nana-Addo and Dr. Bawumia-led administration has been a disaster. They have nothing important to offer except corruption. They are still talking because they have no shame. Why would the president who has professed severally to love Ghana subject innocent senior high school students to this kind of thing? Prof. Jane phobia is killing them. Gabriela.
Sena, I'm glad you made this gentleman go before me. You see, on June 10th, we peaked at 10,000. July 10th, July 11th, we're now at 23,000. That alone tells you that from June 10th to July, 1 month, we've recorded 13,000 new cases. That's the harsh reality of the situation we are in. Yesterday, I heard Honorable Okoboy on a radio station saying that, well, indeed, the numbers, we recorded more cases because we are doing more testing. But the cases that we have, about 98% of them are asymptomatic, and then it's just some 2% who are critical and moderately ill. So that's where the focus should be. But again, the fact also is that of the 23,000 that have been infected, whether asymptomatic or not, are carriers of a virus and have the potential of reinfesting the population with their infection. So it is still a matter of concern. Currently, as we sit here, we have a voter registration exercise ongoing. As a member of the opposition MDC, we went on demonstrations, we protested, we went through the courts, seeking that the leadership of this nation will consider the position of the people of Ghana and rather have a limited registration exercise and not a full voter registration exercise, so as to limit the risk of exposure of the people. I'm glad he made reference to the first day of the registration exercise. Prior to the start of the registration exercise, the EC promised us that they had put in place all the necessary protocols to ensure that the health and safety of the people of Ghana was secured. On the first day of registration, you saw the queues. Tell me, did you see social distancing? I'm asking you a question. Sena.
You're asking Sena.
Yes. Did you see social distancing?
Oh, no.
No, exactly. Because it was not non-existent. At the registration centers, I went to register last Friday. They had Veronica buckets, they had sanitizers. But here's the thing. The Veronica buckets had a mixture of soap and water. When you wash your hands with the solution that is coming from the Veronica bucket, you don't produce lather. So it's more or less like you are just rinsing your hands with soap. I carry my own sample of soap. It's in my handbag. So I always wash my hands with my own soap. After washing your hands, you go to the inner perimeter. I was told, using where I have my registration center as an example, I was told that the NDC candidate had to go and rent out chairs and rather enforce the social distancing because the EC did not make provision for that. What the EC rather did was to let people come and stand and queue. The parliamentary candidate, realizing that having people go through the protocols and the registration is only going to be time consuming on the registrant, decided to rather offer them seating to make them more comfortable. I know some MPP parliamentarians are also doing same. Now, when you get to the place where they fill the forms, from the time when you are moving from seat to seat to seat to seat to seat, washing your hands with water solution, should there be a situation where an individual walks into the premises with a virus? I'm not saying they have the virus, that they have touched a contaminated surface and are carrying the virus, not infected by the virus, are carriers of the virus. That water solution will not do anything to the virus. This individual will go and sit down on the chair. As the next person moves, this individual moves from chair to chair to chair. When you get to the place where they write the names, you are going to give your details to the officer who fills on your behalf. This individual has still not had the viruses off their hands. So you cross over after you fill your forms to where the BVR is. Now, the BVR devices, as when I got there, they offer you sanitizer to now sanitize your hand before you go to the BVR. It took 3 attempts for the BVR to pick me. In all 3 attempts, I had to put my hand back on the device for it to try and pick my fingerprints. At no point did I see any sanitizing of the scanner. What I saw was rather they using the cloth we used to clean the lenses to wipe the surface of the scanner. That was not sanitizing. That is clearing the fingerprints off the scanner. Before you move to the gentleman who cuts your ID card and laminates it, even the EC officers themselves were sitting next to each other, and there wasn't any social distancing aside when you go from one unit to the other unit to the other unit. Where they had 2 officers performing a function, like the taking down of names and details, they were sitting right next to each other. That was not social distancing enforcement. So the point I'm making is that we are already, when the Ghana Health Service did the work plan, the workflow for the EC, to make sure that they themselves were putting in place protocols to prevent us from getting COVID. The EC itself failed. There were queues and queues and queues of people all over the country going through the same thing. I'm not surprised that from June 10th to July 10th, we now have 14,000 cases. Mind you, Noguchi, a week ago, was complaining also that they did not have enough disposables for testing kits available to them. They had a backlog of 12,000. Now I'm told that in actual fact, they now have a backlog of about 23,000 samples as well. Today, they released figures of what they could do today, and I think we have like 391 new cases or thereabouts for today. If you've observed, from June 10th to July 10th, consistently, we've had daily case counts of 700, 600. We went up to 920 something. It tells you that the community spread is on, and it's firing, it's fiery, it's raging. If not, how do we account for 13,000 new cases in just 30 days? Of these new cases, we've also recorded well over 55 new deaths. Some people were saying that the weather is a factor because it appears that as a respiratory disease, COVID thrives better in low temperatures. And that also makes it more lethal. It appears to be so. But what is the remedy? We've been sent out for registration. We've been sent out to collect ID cards. Our kids have been sent back to school. The government, knowing very well that now we now have more numbers out socializing, should rather not come and tell us that where they went to procure the PPEs and the other testing items from, the factories have shut down. It is not an excuse. They have an ambassador in China. All these products, majority of them are being sourced from China and in India. They have every opportunity to also request for sourcing of these items, working with the ambassador in China to make sure that we consistently have the logistics available. Telling us that we don't have test kits available at this time is very unfortunate. So all those 23,000 people whose samples have been taken, currently the doctors managing them don't know the status they are in. So we are going to assume that per the diagnosis or your symptoms, this is COVID. So we are going to give you COVID medication. When in actual fact, perhaps your case is not COVID, but there's something else that we should be treating. Sena, this past week, I think about 3 days ago, the government finally decided to release some items for Noguchi. But Noguchi is not the only testing lab that is currently facing challenges. KCCR, all the other labs have folded down. Again, lack of logistics.
They are not folded.
Pardon?
They are not folded down.
Well, they were not. They were not.
They are tested, not that they are capable, but they haven't folded down.
They were not testing because even Noguchi's extraction machine was not working. That is why you have that backlog.
You work there?
No, but I was explaining 23,000. Sena, just 2 days ago, they gave them some items to support this testing. But here's the case. From the time this COVID started, this government has been excitedly looking for money from here, there, grabbing money here, there, everywhere they are grabbing money, from IMF to World Bank to COVID fund, donations to stabilization fund, and yet you can't even produce simple things like test kits to test the virus in your population. Now, as you were mentioning, our health workers are complaining because so far, according to the GMA and other allied health services, 700 plus of their members have been infected with COVID. Where is the PPEs you promised them? Every time you say you supply them PPEs, from what I have picked up on the ground, when these PPEs go to the facility, let's take a facility like Kolebu, if you send them 200 packs of gloves, look at the size of Kolebu. Look at the number of patients they have to see to in a day. That 200 packs of gloves will be consumed within the week. So you have to figure out what is the consumption rate of these facilities and make sure that you build your supply chain, your logistics to supply them adequately and on time. You have the same for, apart from the gloves, even the mask. You want to supply them fabric mask. I remember GMA Ashanti region complaining bitterly that they do not want fabric mask. What you are giving them, cloth mask, will not protect them. Now, how many, talk about 700 people infected, nine deaths. These health workers, these professionals, the very people who we are dependent on, even in spite of their inadequate numbers, to make sure that they protect their funds and do not lose control over the COVID situation. Because should we come under pressure, not just in terms of the infrastructure available, as in the hospital beds available for COVID cases, should we start losing our health workers because they themselves have to also go into isolation for 2 weeks? Every 2 weeks that a health worker is in isolation, imagine the number of patients that health worker could have helped to treat. So if we expose our own health workers and they are unable to spend the time on the field, preventing and protecting and curing and healing our population, our people, then what are we ourselves doing? Okay. Now you have a president who is in isolation. Your chief justice is in isolation. Campaign strategist is in a hospital. Thankfully, Mr. Danboche and Napo are out. Then, from my conclusion, he mentioned that people should take responsibility. It is very true. Because in life, we are responsible for our own selves first of all. But the people also look to us for leadership. When, as leaders, we go for a primaries and throw away all protocols and allow people to jubilate, to hug, to touch themselves, and let it free range, do we come back and tell the people, I told you to be responsible, but I'm as if I'm not responsible? We have a situation where a whole member of parliament, knowing very well that he has tested positive from the MPP camp, excitedly was roaming around his constituency, sharing, knowing his situation. Meanwhile, the EI, EI 63, made it a crime for somebody who tests positive to be out. When you test positive, automatically you go into isolation. But we want the people. This is a clear situation of do as I say, but don't do as I do. Elephant you, elephant me. The laws are different. So if they want the people to accept responsibility for the virus, please tell them they should also show more responsibility to the people and do the right thing, because it's not animal farm.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, Sasabi is saying, Sena, good afternoon. Okay, this is still morning, by the way. The talk of individuals should follow the protocols while the government policies are leading us to mass up at EC and NIA registration and opening of schools. What can we do as citizens to prevent the COVID-19 than swim in it? Hadi in Pig Farm says, I can see that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama's running mates has confused the whole MPP. All what the Nagging People's Party can say about Professor Nana is she cancelled teachers' allowance, nothing more or less. And then Charles Namina Samake says, so those claiming Prof. Jane failed as education minister, please, who are they comparing her to? Is it Napo? And whose tenure terminal and final examinations are done on chalkboard? Or is it former education minister Osafumafo who supervised the sale of government textbooks which are supposed to be free? Please, they should go and come back again. Mr. Pratt.
I hope we get the full implications of what is happening. Here we are. Our Ministry of Finance, which is the nerve center of all financial transactions, has been closed down. Cocoa Board, and cocoa is one of the main, life streams of our economy, been closed down. Yeah, Bost and others. So if you look at the range of state institutions which have been closed down, you ought to be frightened. We are shutting down. We are shutting down the economy. At the time when we were lifting the restrictions, the argument was that we didn't want to shut down the economy. The lifting of the restrictions has actually led to a situation in which the economy is being shut down. And that is the clear manifestation of failure. Very clear manifestation of failure. At this stage, I don't want to hear national leaders telling us to observe protocols. Because we know, as a matter of fact, that the observation of protocols does not prevent the virus. Unless somebody is going to tell me that the Minister of Health did not observe the protocols. And it would be very strange if the Minister of Health did not observe the protocols. Yesterday, I heard Mr. Dan Botwe, another minister, actually saying on air that he was so frightened of the virus that in his house, he was spraying everywhere. That he would not touch a handle he had not sprayed and so on. He was wearing his face mask religiously, and yet he caught the virus. We are told to eat well in order to prevent the virus and so on. Is somebody telling me that Prince Charles was not eating well? Is somebody telling me that all the heads of states and prime ministers and ministers who are getting it were not eating well? Please stop the joke. We should stop the joke and face reality. Now we should eat kontomre and dawa. The people who are catching the virus, were they not eating kontomre and dawa? Napo, Minister of Education, what was he eating? So stop that joke. Look, the president himself told us, and I'm not the one who said it, I'm not the one who wrote his speech for him. He told us that the virus is unable to move. It is when human beings move that the virus moves. We don't have a vaccine, we don't have a cure. So how do you contain this disease? You contain this disease only by limiting human mobility. I mean, we are not limiting human mobility. They say we should do this, and you know that all the things you're asking us to do are useless. The only thing wearing face masks, frequent washing of hands can do, use of sanitizer can do, and so on, is to limit the spread of the disease. The extent to which the spread of the disease can be limited is shown in the figures. When we have hit 23,000 in this short space of time, we are not limiting the disease to any appreciable level. And we should not forget that we are not doing random mass testing. So if we are doing random mass testing, where would we be by now? The social and cultural conditions in our country today even make it impossible for us to get a full count of the disease. Look, all the people who are dying in the Zongos, who are not being subjected to post-mortem examination and so on, how do we know what is killing them? We know, as a fact, today, some people die within 4 hours, they are buried. How do you know what killed them? The people, the 23,000 people, how did we get to know? These are people like us, like Mujib and me and so on, who go to hospitals. Many people in our population have nothing to do with our hospitals. So there are so many unreported cases. And even with those so many unreported cases, you have 23,000. I am frightened. And many people are frightened. Now, somebody should explain to me why it has become so necessary for us to compile a new voters register. I mean, that is the height of our foolishness as a society. Because all the major political parties came to us telling us that, look, with the old register, we can win free, credible, and fair elections. Mark Menu, head of the MPP's campaign team, said the same thing. He told the media that the MPP is capable of winning free, fair, and transparent elections with the old register. So why are we doing a new register with all the risk? All the protocols that the Electoral Commission announced, how many of them are being followed? Let's be honest. I went to one of the registration centers. The EC told us that after every person registers, the equipment to be sanitized and so on. I went and stood there quietly just watching. You see the machine on which you put your fingers and so on. 5 people, they put their fingers on it before somebody took some tissue paper, dipped it in sanitizer, and scraped the top. The protocol is not being followed. We were told that people who are above 60, who are most vulnerable, will have their registrations done at the district offices of the commission, here in Ayawasu, West Wogo. We have been searching for the district office of the Electoral Commission since the exercise began. We can't find it. The impression is that there's none here. It's not in all the districts that they have offices. Now you go to the registration centers and you see old women being carried to the registration centers. You see old men and women being wheeled to the registration centers and so on. Who do they think they're fooling? Who do they think they're fooling? And then this thing has gone on for more than a week. What do you expect? What do you expect? The worst part of it is that we have decided that final year students of the SHS, should go back to school. And to protect them and to protect the whole of society, we have decided that even their parents, even if they will go there in iron marks, should not be allowed to see their children. If you're a parent and you have iron marks, you are not allowed to see your children. But we have decided to allow election officials and party agents to invade those schools. We are very smart people, we are very sensible people, aren't we? That is what we have decided to do. In any case, if you look at the constitutional instrument and so on, the secondary schools are not designated by law as registration centers. So it is a blatant illegality. It is illegal, and we are doing it. And it has consequences for spreading this disease. Hey, what is happening in our country? Master, what is happening in our country? What is happening to our leaders? Pardon? What is happening? I mean, some of the things that are happening is so frightening, and yet we are doing it. Look, we are told that we should be led by science. We agree. The people who are telling us that we should be led by science came and said, oh, economics is also a science. So if we are going to be led by science, we should be led by economic science. So, hey, what is this? In a situation of a pandemic, you are going to be led by economic science. You must be very wise. Because in a situation of pandemic, you should be led by biomedical science and not economic science. See where we are. The Ghana Medical Association, in March, the Ghana Medical Association issued a statement explaining how they thought we could fight this disease and so on. It was thrown away. The Ghana Medical Association insisted on a lockdown, insisted on mass random testing. We threw their recommendations away. Today, look at where we are. Last week, the Ghana Medical Association issued a very significant statement. It blamed the ongoing registration exercise, it blamed the MPP primaries and so on for the spike in the spread of COVID-19 and so on. Not just that. The Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association, it has been speaking. And I feel sad. What are they telling us? They're telling us that, look, if you go to the hospitals and clinics, the PPEs are simply not available. In fact, the General Secretary of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association said he went to one hospital, there were only 2 PPEs. 2 PPEs. So all the noise that has been made about the thousands of gallons of sanitizers and so on that are being sent to the hospitals, where are they? You saw the video of the priestess who went to the emergency ward at Kolebu and came out complaining that she couldn't find one sanitizer in Kolebu, the emergency ward. The nation's leading hospital, its emergency ward, didn't have a sanitizer. And we are here beating our chest about how well we have done. 3 days ago, I listened to an official of the Africa Center for Disease Control, and I was shocked. Because all we are hearing is that Ghana is being commended as the country which has done better than everybody else and so on. The official of the infectious disease, whatever, was saying on BBC that Ghana is one of the 5 worst countries in Africa. That their main concern is these 5 countries in Africa. 5. We are among the 5 worst countries in Africa. And we are beating our chest. What for? You know, for me, the thing which annoys me more than anything else is when we are told by our leaders that, oh, this virus has come to stay. So we should learn to live with it. Learn to live with a virus that has killed millions of people. Is that the attitude? We should learn to live with it. They say, don't worry, it has come to stay, it's not going anywhere, so live with it. Die with it. This virus has killed millions. And we are told by the experts and science that we haven't even reached our peak yet. We haven't reached our peak at all, and it's already killed millions. And then they tell us that we should not worry about the infection rate. We should look at the recovery. And they think that we are yo-yos. We are not yo-yos. Because the science teaches us that the mortality rate is about 2% worldwide. Whether you apply medicine or you don't apply medicine, even if you sit down and do nothing, you will still get a mortality rate of around 2%. Whether we are in China or we are in Afghanistan or we are in Mongolia, we are going to get that. So that is not an achievement. The death rate is not an achievement. And they stop wasting our time by reminding us about the death rate. And then they come and tell us recovery rate. So what? Now, in every family, in every institution in this country, there's chaos and panic. People are so frightened. I mean, before, if you sneezed, you were told, God bless you for sneezing. Today, sneeze and see. I mean, people who sneeze themselves are so frightened. I met a lady who came to town and sneezed. And she was so worried that she's got COVID-19, she started running back home. You understand? That is the reality of our situation. Moji, you asked the question. I think you shouldn't have asked that question. This question about which country is doing well. There are so many countries around the world doing excellently well. And I always mention the case of Mauritius. Mauritius had less than 200 cases 4 months ago. Less than 200 cases 4 months ago. They shut down the country. In the last 3 weeks, they have had zero infections continuously for 3 weeks. There's nobody in Mauritius today who is infected. Nobody. From 200, they came to 0. And we, from 5, we've gone to 23,000 plus. We should learn from Mauritius. You know, I get freaked when people refer to the United States of America. Is that the example? Is that what we're going to compare ourselves with? Donald Trump and his remedy? Donald Trump, before he became president. In fact, the first president of the United States of America to recognize that we could have a virus of this nature was George Bush. So George Bush actually went to Congress and secured funding for putting in place measures to fight viruses like this, coronaviruses and so on. Barack Obama became president and actually started putting in place institutions to fight coronavirus. Donald Trump came and said, to hell with it, and dismantled all the institutions. When the outbreak occurred, he said it was nothing but a flu and so on. His reckless negligence has led to the situation in the United States of America. His reckless negligence, coupled with the fact that under capitalism, access to health care is not universal and it is not a human right. So we should stop making references to the United States of America. That is not the place we should be comparing ourselves with. The United States of America is a total disaster. And please, don't point to the United States of America. We have failed in containing the virus. The virus is now ahead of us. And I don't know what we are going to do. In the beginning, the virus was spreading from those who came from abroad. It was possible to do contact tracing and so on in order to contain the situation. As we speak now, we have reached the point of community transmission of the disease. And it's the most dangerous, we are in the most dangerous situation now. We could have done much, much better earlier. Now we've come to the point where fighting this virus has become a Herculean task as a result of the refusal of our leaders to listen to sound biomedical advice. And I hope that they will learn some common sense and begin to listen to the Ghana Medical Association and begin to listen to the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association. 777 of them have been infected. You already have a problem with nurse-patient ratio, have a problem with doctor-patient ratio, and you have more than 700 of your medical personnel being infected. I don't know what to say.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Pratt. Just one from Kwesi in the UK who says, Sena, from Nkrumah days to date, MPP cannot change who they are. In vindictive policies, Ghana deserves better. This one says, Sena, please tell my good friend Kwesi Pratt Jr. that the virus is now moving on. It is airborne, and anything that is airborne can be moved by the slightest wind. That is what he says. And then I'll end with Dr. David Percy, who says Nanado plus MPP first ignored COVID-19 and made little or no preparations to fight the pandemic. Their carelessness and inattention allowed the virus into Ghana. Then they put up a pretense to fighting the pandemic when his arrival in Ghana could no longer be hidden. Ably assisted by carefully chosen reliable MPP person from the GMA, Noguchi, Ghana Health Service, and organized labor. Now under the banner, we must learn to live with the virus. Nana Akufo-Addo plus the MPP have abandoned all pretense of fighting COVID-19. All those while, Nanado's focus was on looking good in the eyes of Ghanaians and carrying through the long-planned new voters register to suppress opposition votes and rig the December 2020 elections. Thank you, Doc. And a big thank you for making time to watch us today. I was here this morning with Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jr., who is managing editor of the Inside newspaper. Always available on Saturdays to join us here whenever he is free. A big thank you to him, and a big thank you to Dr. Samson Obedapia, who joined us from the University of Ghana today. And a big thank you to Gabriela Tete, who has broken the ceiling. So now you'll be seeing more women on the panel. Big thank you to. It was interesting listening to her insights. And then Mujib Rahman, who is from the MPP's communication team. A big thank you to him. I leave with this message from Angelo Kojofiagbo. He says, Sena, let's not forget the harassment going on in our beloved Volta region. Regardless of the intruding of Akufo-Addo's armed forces in the Volta region, our numbers are extremely increasing than ever before. Sena, we need prayers as a region. That's from Angelo Kojofiagbo. A big thank you to you for watching. A big thank you to our affiliate radio stations across the country and those of you who send messages through Facebook, among others. Enjoy the rest of the weekend and enjoy the rest of the week. My name is Sena Nombo. We are back same time next week.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer and the champion of liberty, of human equality. Let's salute him, fellow Ghanaians, the nation's founder, Opoku-Agyemang. May God bless him, Ghana show boy.